Merry Christmas, Troy.
Abed, you look gleeful.
Troy, don't you think it might actually be fun doing this Christmas pageant for the Glee Club?
Abed, we hate the Glee Club.
Yeah. I guess I just like liking things.
Abed. Look, you know I'd do anything you did, but I'm a Jehovah's Witness. We're not supposed to celebrate Christmas.
I've been thinking about that. I may have a loophole. What if you were a Jehovah's Witness that was merely pretending to be into Christmas, gathering clues and blending in to take down the holidays from within?
You mean like a spy investigating? Making it seem like I'm celebrating when actually I'm infiltrating Santa's operation?
Yoip! Going deep, cover past enemy lines, making everybody think I'm on the Christmas side. Rocking warm sweaters, hanging big ass lights. If the fat man can see me, yo, it's gotta look right. I watch all the TV specials that I never could. I'll even cry during the sad ones like James Bond would. And when the big night comes, it's time to set the bait. Cold milk, hot cookies, decorative plates. And he'll come down the chimney and it will be just him and me, but he won't know we're enemies cause stop play sincere. Bring a trap like that, how come I get on his lap and tell him he can come back every year? Cause I am Jehovah's most secret witness, so I might have to dedicate my life to Christmas and act just like I love it till the day I die.
Connoisseur of Christmas, on the spectrum, none of your business. Thoughts too fast to comprehend, just wanna do right by my friends. If years were seasons, this December would be the December of our December. More blueprints than Howard Hughes, but if there are blueprints, how do we choose? We have to be happy to get to the end. We have to save Christmas to save our friends. We have to save Christmas to save our friends. We have to save Christmas to save our friends.
Hey guys. Rapping?
Yep. Want to join us?
Totally.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Altar Nativity Stories.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Alternativity Stories, a month-long look at alternative stories set around the most wonderful time of year. And it's time to talk about some ho-ho holiday specials today. We are going back to the world of holiday specials after me and Andy covered one some time ago, an infamous one, which I'm sure I will bring up again later. So yes, we are here today to talk, and this has been a long-delayed podcast, in fact. I think we've delayed it by 2 years. Am I right, my guest Jack?
That does sound about right. We were all geared up.
Yes, yeah, we were geared up the year before.
Them twice. And then
we were.
Yeah, freaking threw a spanner in the works, didn't he?
Yeah, it did. He had to go and die. But what an excellent film we covered, though.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think we'd trade that for the world, that experience, to watch that again. And again, it made your top 5 best films we've ever covered on the podcast as well.
That's it, exactly, yeah. And it was a brilliant, if I do say so myself, a brilliant episode. I think I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, and we brought a lot of our respective kind of worlds to that movie. You and your deep research, and me with kind of my sort of film teacher head on. So yeah, I think that was a great podcast, and I think, you know, the delay has just meant that we've been able to watch more ho-ho holiday TV. So
yes, we've got an extra 2 years worth of stuff to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, you know, every Christmas you get these kind of things come out every time. So my initial idea for this was that we were going to do kind of holiday specials. So Alternativity Stories encompasses all holidays. So Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, Kwanzaa, New Year's. Unfortunately, I didn't let Jack know that's what we were doing. So Jack focused entirely on Christmas specials, focusing almost entirely purely on Christmas, though there is some kind of mentions of different holidays, of course. But so I decided that this time we would focus purely on Christmas holiday specials, and then maybe next time we do non-Christmas holiday specials to include all those other holidays as well, and give them their own kind of breathing room as well. And again, it is the most commercial, holiday is the most, the largest, one of the largest religions in the world, and the most kind of Western, and most of this TV and film stuff does come from the Western world. So I thought, let's give it its own space, and these other holidays their own space, and that's what we've done. So we've listed our top 5 holiday specials. So this can include. It has to come or originate from a TV show. So it can be a TV episode, it can be a special, it can be feature length, it can be an extended episode, or it can be a TV length special movie or a made-for-TV movie. So these are all ones you can include. Tell us your own lists if you want to message in or respond or however you want to do it. But that's what we've gone for. So what made you pick this topic, Jack? Because I don't really cover TV very often. Because again, I say I'm not really a TV guy. I enjoy TV, I enjoy episodes of stuff, but it's not something I'm not consistent with it. I don't tend to finish or go through shows like to completion. Now you are the completionist, and you will. Is that why you picked? You were getting me out of my comfort zone?
Maybe that's in the back of my mind. I think these kind of episodes, if it's an episode from a show, or if like you say, if it's a holiday special, tend to put a lot of weight, a lot of effort into creating the best material they can for this. You think of any kind of sitcom, or when you get the Thanksgiving or the Christmas or the New Year episode, they tend to be kind of the highlights of the season. And then when sort of longer form drama shows do it, or when you get the Christmas specials, which I'm sure will come up during our discussion, either from ourselves or from comments that you get, they are ones which just seem to get the highest ratings on IMDb, or seem to be the most popular ones, get really great viewership on TV. And then that's for a reason. It's because there just seems to be something special about the episode where they've, like I say, because they tie in the themes of what Christmas in this instance should be, and that often affords for quite interesting stories. And as we'll talk, I'm sure, there's a lot of material for these episodes or specials to draw upon, because they can kind of put their own spin on what are some very kind of classic tales. So yeah, I think there's a lot of scope. And as you said, there is an endless supply. I mean, you and I have got very different lists. I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but we decided to share so we could watch each other, so we weren't coming into this without any kind of full knowledge of what each other's watched. So really, we could keep doing this every year probably without even bringing in the other holidays, as you mentioned.
True.
Still keep finding lists of 5. So yeah, it's a broad subject, and it allows for people to really apply their own tastes as a topic piece.
Absolutely. I think as well, I've gone personally with shows that I'm very familiar with, or at least mainly familiar with. I didn't want to just kind of cherry pick random stuff I'd never seen before. So I will have seen, several episodes at least, or a handful of episodes, or got a sense of the show, or know what the characters are about before putting them in these specific holiday settings. I think that was kind of important for me, unless it is maybe an anthology show, like a Black Mirror, or, something like that, or an Inside Number 9, or, those kind of things, because they're individual episodes. You can watch them in isolation anyway, individual characters and individual stories. So that's why I went with those, because again, I'm not a big TV show watcher. I'm not a big, especially when it comes to drama or action, or or things like that. It's I will watch a lot of kind of sitcom stuff, I think, and comedy. That seems to be my go-to, or animated comedy as well. Just kind of like a short, sharp, good bit of humor and injection of levity when you need it most. But yeah, there's some great TV shows out there. But I tend to be more of a short form entertainment kind of person. But I have really enjoyed doing this. Again, these are short form. All the episodes are short. But yeah, so it's the longer ones with the kind of overarching plots and storylines that I tend not to kind of I tend to fall off, and it's not necessarily because the shows are bad. I could be really enjoying a show. I didn't finish Mando season 3, even though I was on Mike's podcast, Genuine Chit Chat, talking about, or Comics in Motion, talking about how much I enjoyed that episode. I just didn't finish the rest of the show afterwards. I just, and again, it wasn't for quality or anything. And there is times where I will drop off because of quality, or worry that, I'm going to get to the end of it and it's going to be I've already heard the ending shit, or the last season is shit, or the next season is shit. So that kind of stuff kind of puts me off as well. But in general, I've really enjoyed this. It was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, and I have too. So thank you. And but I think that's where again, our lists are going to show who we are, because I think
Yes,
I've
absolutely.
I've done exactly the same. Like my listeners all think this will not surprise anybody. Like I had fun with you and Mike when you were doing a podcast which came out recently, and I was trying to predict what kind of movies you might pick. And I didn't do very well with you. Well, I did terrible for you and I did okay for Mike. I did average across the two of you. But I mean, I think anybody that knows anything about me from life, from listening to podcasts, will probably be able to get all 5 of these without much effort at all. So I think that's really nice that we both sort of brought our personality to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Again, my choices absolutely scream me. And with those lists, I'm always going out of my way to be the weird, pull out the weird, or the obscure, or the strange. So I was like, good luck. Good luck if you can figure out what the fuck I've chosen. And I was a bit more like coy about posting on Instagram, and I was like, I'll see if you can fucking guess this. Or doing a review on Letterboxd. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll see what you think. But you did like pretty much every single one you mentioned. It was mentioned in passing, if not by Mike and myself. It was mentioned in one of the listener comments. Again, if not by yourself, by another person as well. So, I mean, you weren't, it wasn't like miles away, some of them. Of course, with mine, because I go out of my way to be fucking weird. I'm the outsider.
That's why we love you.
And that's part of the fun. But yeah, there was that, generally kind of the films that are going to come up in those kind of lists. And Mike even went out of his way. He's like, no one's going to pick this one. No one's going to pick this one. And then we see the listener comments, and he's like, oh my God, they picked all the ones I picked. And, and I was like, yeah, you're not on my level yet, Mike, with the obscure taste and weird shit or bizarre choices that I've got going on. But yeah, again, that podcast was a lot of fun as well. And I'm surprised we kept it spoiler free as well. Not like me at all, usually.
True.
Yeah. I was just following Mike's lead, so I was like,
I don't think that will happen. I don't think that will happen tonight, I'm afraid. So maybe let's put that warning out now. I think in discussing individual episodes, I think it's impossible, really, isn't it? Because you've got to talk about how they tie in to the series at times, particularly with maybe more of my picks, but...
Yeah, I think I might need to explain, especially one episode. As much as I enjoyed it, I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. And I think that was a show that was known for people not knowing what the fuck was going on.
Indeed.
And I still didn't know what the fuck was going on. But yes, so let's begin. Let's begin this holiday banquet of all of our best TV episodes and specials. And you are the guest, Jack. So I open up the chestnuts roasting on an open fire. You can release all your eggnog all over us.
Wow. Okay.
Told you I'm weird.
Yeah, it was a great fun, and I tried to do my Dan diligence, as I like to call it. I tried to watch as much as I could, even before I even started getting to your picks.
We even watched our honourable mentions as well. Most of them, for the most part. There's one I'm holding back on, and there was a couple I'd seen already or I'd already included. So we've gone hardcore in sharing our choice.
Yeah, we have. So I think I must have watched at least 20 episodes just for my own list, and obviously then adding in yours, that's now another 10. So I think we've done the rounds, but I think I did the same as you. There is so many to choose from, but I didn't want to just, as you said, just watch a random episode of something and then claim some kind of knowledge of it. There may be really amazing episodes of TV out there. If it's not something I've experienced, and it's not going to feature on this list. And I did want to do, I've just said like Mr. Mainstream over here, like my picks are going to be obvious for who I am, but I did kind of want to avoid the first things that jumped into my head. So no offense to anybody if they've picked these, but the Office Christmas specials, they are amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's a pretty much perfect couple of episodes of TV, but it's almost kind of too obvious to pick it, or, like the Snowman, for instance. Like we all grew up watching the Snowman. That is a holiday special. That's really probably important for a lot of people's lives, and then you pass it on to your kids. And obviously you mentioned the Star Wars holiday special. If you hadn't already covered obviously it'd be number one on my list here. But
number one on Andy's list too.
Absolutely. So yeah, the certain things I sort of thought, well, I do love that, but I'm not gonna pick that today. I'm going to talk about things, as you said, that are meaningful to me. So I do almost kind of have a 5-3-1. I know you don't normally do that, and I think yours are probably just going to be at random.
Mine are as random as the choices themselves, and as random as I am. So yeah, there's no real order, I think.
Whereas I feel for mine, there's a bit more of a kind of countdown.
Through line.
Again, it will become very clear as we get to the top three about why. So I would say, yeah, my fifth favourite episode that I've watched recently of shows that I admire and I've watched all of and I've completed and would be season 3 episode 10 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is called Yippee Kayak, which again, for anybody that knows me and my passion for Die Hard, will surprise nobody. So in this episode, Jake, our main character, played by Andy Samberg, Xena, who is his friend from school, and Boyle, which is his best friend in the police force, all in a department store on Christmas Eve, which gets taken over by not terrorists who are trying to rob the store and get into the safe. And Jake gets very excited and he declares, "It's real life Die Hard." So, yeah, Jake and we are on a bromance in terms of a love of Die Hard. Emma, my partner, often describes me as a person as a combination of the geekiness of Jake Peralta and the introverted kind of, I don't know what the right word for it, of Nick Miller in New Girl. She sort of thinks of me as being a combination of those two people. So kind of Nick in personality and Jake in kind of geeky passions. I mean, hell, I'm here for that comparison. She loves me, so she's overly generous with who she compares me to. It's much worse in real life, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so when all this occurs in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's, that part of the show, of course, I'm all down for. But they do the usual Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing where they don't just kind of follow the formula. What they will do is use it for laughs. Of course, it's a comedy, but, they actually have moments within the show, which is a 30-minute sitcom show, but they show growth of characters and relationships all the way through Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think that's why it was so successful. And a key part of this episode is the friendship, the best friendship between Boyle and Jake, and how that's been affected by Jake's relationship with Amy. And for fans of the show, I said I was going to spoil it. They obviously end up getting married and having kids. And so, of course, it affects the kind of bromance relationship between Boyle and Jake. So that's the core of this episode, which is how can this close group of people continue to move forward? Because Jake's forgotten to get Boyle a Christmas present. So that's why they're going to the department store on Christmas Eve. And he's lied to him and said he forgot to get Amy one, and which is why Boyle's come along. And it's a whole kind of, series of sitcom-y events, which means they end up there. Yeah, so that means by the end you have this nice moment between Boyle and Jake, and you have this nice moment of growth within their relationship, and Boyle accepts that he can't be the number one anymore. And the reason that comes to pass is because Jake gives up his John McClane moment and lets Boyle have it. It's brilliant. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is consistently funny. I think one of the most consistently funny sitcoms that's ever been on TV. Obviously, it's set in a police station with the police force, and it addresses that at times very maturely, I think, particularly in later seasons.
There's a great episode I remember about racial profiling, which, again, I think that's the thing about like sitcoms, is because it's all about laughter and it's all about, these funny characters. When they hit you with a very special episode of Blossom, it is really kind of, it hits you a bit harder than you think, because you love these characters and you've laughed with them and you've grown with them, and and the second when something really happens, when you see Will Smith hug Uncle Phil, and his dad leaves, there's you honestly feel it, because you've just so used to just this general kind of fun kind of laughter. When it comes to something really serious, it just hits all that much harder.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that episode, if I remember correctly, Stephanie Beatrice, who plays Rosa, she wrote and directed that episode, I think. So
did she?
It was, I think, if I've got that right, it's coming from a place probably of experience from her. Yeah, you're right. And I think, Scrubs did this really well. When Scrubs was on and it was at its peak, it balanced that kind of humour and pathos and been able to talk about topical, difficult subjects at times. And I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine kind of picks up that baton, and it does it really well. Yeah, I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's a show it's on E4 literally all the time. If I'm scrolling and it's on, it's one that I'm always happy to have on.
At least they've stopped showing Friends, for God's sake. Like, even I got sick of that after a while. I was just like, fuck, can we put a different show on for a bit. I don't mind that going round and round in my head for a while, but I've seen Friends thousands of times. I was like, we're ready for something else, absolutely. And I this was definitely in the contention for my episodes as well when it came up, and I was like, yeah, it's Die Hard. It's a show I've watched all of, I believe. Maybe not the last season. I think there was a pickup season which I might not have seen, but I've seen the majority of it. I love all the characters, especially no longer with us, but Andre Brauger, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was superb. Just that kind of, again, openly gay and kind of this solemn and stern police captain, but really just the heart of a softie, and some great stuff. And Terry Crews as well. All of the actors are fantastic in that, and they all, even Scully and what's the other one? I can't remember. Is it Scully? Am I saying?
Yeah, Scully
and
what is his name?
I can't remember.
Hitchcock
and Scully. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Even they play a significant role, and all the kind of they get all the different. I love all the kind of guest players that come in as well. They're all really good, and they have a real strong kind of character to play. The Vulture, yeah, exactly. I kind of love him and his misogyny and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Doug Judy.
And the Vulture's in this one as well. He's the guys on the outside in Die Hard that are arguing and bickering, and he's like, well, I'm going to do that. He's the I can't remember the actor's name in Die Hard, but he's the guy who's in.
Yeah, it's Johnson & Johnson.
That's it. And you've got the guy who's the teacher in the Breakfast Club. He's like,
a
bit of
Paul Gleason, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he's like the idiot, and he's like, well, we're going to do this, and and it's just, and then like Terry Crews plays kind of like the Reginald Val Johnson role, which I thought was great as well. And Charles Boyle. I mean, if you're a Jake Peralta, I'm definitely more of a Charles Boyle. I think out of the two of us, definitely, just kind of overly enthusiastic and a bit dim, passionate. That's what I'm going to say.
That's it. Absolutely
passionate. It's a wonderful episode, and again, it plays with it subverts those tropes found in that film. I love. I think it's Chelsea Peretti, the actress. I want to say.
That plays Xena.
Yeah. I think Gina's amazing, and again, this desire for her to just go around flamethrowing everything. She's like, let's roast these bitches, and like, no bitches are going to get roasted. It's brilliant. And all the while they're kind of trying to keep the fact, even during this hostage situation, they're trying to keep the fact that they didn't buy Boyle a gift, that Jake didn't buy Boyle because it would crush him, and which is he's already revealed, if he tells him, it's going to crush me in my soul. It's
a cool like tooling up moment, isn't there, as well? They go around the department store getting all the things they need to tool up, and it's like checking out frying pans and what weapons they can possibly use.
Jake's going around and writing down like made up names because he's like, oh, you're going to be German, or like he keeps going, he's like, you're just American.
You're going to call Fritz, and it's like Dave.
Dave. Matt. And then he's like, oh, you're not foreign, you're not Greek, you're not Iranian, you're not this, you're not that. And he was like, he's hoping for like a terrorist situation, which again in Die Hard, it's not a terrorist situation, is it? That's the again, they subvert their own trope in there. But yeah, wonderful episode. And I also like the kind of subplot again where Amy's trying to impress Diaz and Captain Holt by doing this really cold swim, even though that she's absolutely petrified of being cold. So you can kind of see why those kind of characters came together, Peralta and Amy, and just a wonderful show, wonderful characters, and again, like, a show that can be, I know there's all this talk about comedy being like problematic and stuff like that, and this show really isn't. It shows that you can make a really decent comedy show without having to be overtly offensive to any group or any person. A wonderful show. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to say? I think I've talked more about your choice than you have. Actually.
That's fine, but that's why we watched each other. So no, I don't think so. I think it's anything that references Die Hard inevitably jumps to the top of any of my lists. But when you put these characters, this lovable host of characters, as you said, into this situation and create a way for them to grow and to develop and to give each other moments to shine, which is what this episode does. And I think that's why Brooklyn Nine-Nine is so good as well. The characters do, of course, but actually the actors do. Each actor is always happy to let somebody else take the spotlight or have the funniest moment, or like it's cliche to say, but it really does feel like a true family of actors.
It's a real ensemble. It's a real ensemble piece. Like nobody, like I said, everyone there has a role and has a reason for being there. But nobody, even though the focus is Jake to a degree, it's still very much an ensemble piece with all the different players, and there's so many different levels of the comedy, of the sight gags and slapstick, and all sorts of wonderful bits of just play. It just feels like they're all enjoying and playing and having a great time with it. So yeah, and then again, the immortal lines, "Yippee kayak" is again wonderful. And again, they can't say the actual line, but yeah.
No, Boyle, you messed it up. That was your moment. Absolutely,
he's angry, and he's like, "Jake, you need to take my tank top." Like, I love that about Boyle. That Boyle is like, "This is your moment. This is you. This is this is something for you. This is everything you ever dreamed of doing. This is why you became a cop." And he's like, "Oh well, I picked up this one. It was like baby girl, and I had this
that's right,
zebra print." He's like, "Okay, maybe not." And yeah. And like the gift for Boyle is like, it's like man stank or something. I can't remember.
Yes, aftershave that he wears anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, I got it for Amy. He was like, you didn't get this for Amy. A wonderful, wonderful show. Like, it makes me want to rewatch the whole thing again, because it's such a fun show. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else you want to end on with that?
No, other than 9-9.
9-9, absolutely 9-9, and I'm sure it would have kept, if they could keep it going. They kept it going as long as they could, and I think again with Andre Bauer dying, I think it's probably all right to leave it where it is, and I don't think you need to bring it back. Just enjoy what it was. It was a great moment, and just a wonderful show and lots of fun, and again with a lot of energy, and just love it. Great choice for show. So I'm going to go with my choice now. We're going very old. We're going back to the 1960s, and we're going to talk about the Twilight Zone. So this is an episode from season 2. It is season 2, episode 11. Now, unfortunately, this is a set of episodes that were recorded on video to save money and then converted into 16mm. There was only 6 in the entire show where they did this, and because of that, it looks a bit shit. Unfortunately, to say the least. There's this weird kind of shadow and kind of almost dark halo effect over a lot of the characters and a lot of shots. And again, Rod Sterling, who produced the show, wrote this episode, was like, why have we done this? This cutting cost just makes the whole show look awful. It doesn't have the same quality as filming it on 16mm. So yeah, that's the downside of the episode. Speaking of Star Wars The Holiday Special, which starred Art Carney. Art Carney is in this as well, so I feel like I had to go with this first. So making the through line from our holiday special into this one. This is called The Night of the Meek, and it stars Art Carney as a down on his luck alcoholic Santa at a department store. So he does it every year, but he is a drunk, not because of any kind of selfish reasons, not for any kind of things that have happened to him. It's just the world at large that has depressed him and resulting in him drinking. There's kids outside that are hungry. There's a missionary kind of housing place where it's full of drunks and alcoholics. And it's pretty bleak as Christmas goes. And the Twilight Zone was mostly known for kind of horror and morality tales and things like this. So this is quite a different kind of animal, because it's a bit more of a light-hearted kind of... It starts, again, quite bleak, quite depressing, quite dark, but it is quite sentimental. And I Spielberg started with Rod Sterling. He did the first episode of The Night Gallery, which is kind of a honorary sequel or kind of sequel to The Twilight Zone by Rod Sterling as well. And he even did the section in the movie, the Twilight Zone movie, which was the worst section. And my main issue with that is that, again, we've talked about it before with his sentimentality. It sometimes can be a bit saccharine, a bit too sweet. And I think for me, to earn the sentimentality, you kind of have to go quite bleak from the get-go to earn that sentimentality. And I think that's what this episode does, because he starts off, he's drinking, he's late for his job, he's this department store Santa, but again, it's the world outside and the economic apocalypse. Quite relevant, really, this episode, saying it was 50 plus years ago now. And he gets there, he's late, he's drunk, he falls over. This kid's like, Santa's loaded. You can see he was drunk, he's getting complaints, he's getting shouted at. And again, and he explains it, he was like, why isn't there a Santa Claus? Why do you suppose there can't be someone like that out there? I wish there was. I wish the meek could inherit the earth, the children and the old people, and everybody there could be something right going on in this world. He tries stealing a bottle of whiskey from the barman and he almost clocks him one. And while he's kind of in his depressed stupor, there's some really like heartbreaking moments. Like the two kids kind of see him in the street and they go up and like, Santa, I want this for Christmas, I want that. And like one of them goes, I want my dad to have a job. I want a turkey, I want to eat, and it's like, and he breaks down, and then you get Rod Serling, breaking the fourth wall and introducing the episode, which he did usually, classically, and then again at the end of the episode as well. And during his kind of stupor and stuff, he knocks over this bag, this kind of almost like a garbage bag. It's more of a sack full of tins, and there's a cat in there as well. And then there's this kind of, he enters the Twilight Zone. And the sack becomes a sack of presents. And he basically can reach in there and pulls out anybody's heart's desire. So if somebody wants a sweater, they get a sweater. If they want a pipe or a smoking jacket, they get that. And because he's just giving out these presents, the police come and they're like, you robbed them from the department store, didn't you? And he's like, no, I wouldn't do that. It's just, and he's drunk on Yuletide spirit. There's another really kind of sad moment as well, where he's at this missionary house and the alcoholics are there. And one guy, they're all asking for all this stuff, like I mentioned, and he says, can I have a bottle of wine? And he just kind of hits you. It's like, oof, fucking hell. That really like hurts to kind of like just to think about that, and he gets like a cane instead, but yeah, obviously he wants the bottle of wine, but he gets arrested and they try pulling stuff out of the bag and a cat falls out the bag, the tins fall out of the bag, and yeah, they let him go because they don't have any proof that he's stolen it. Even though there's no kind of scenario where they would have thought he would have stolen stuff other than him having a bag of presents. And then he goes out, he gives all the stuff out, and people say, you didn't get anything Christmas, and he goes, this was the greatest gift of all. My wish would be that I do this every year. And then he goes down the little alley and he finds a sleigh and there's an elf waiting for him. And he says, we've got work to do, Santa. Let's get ready for next year. And then we get a lovely little outro from Rod Serling. And that's the end of the episode. And again, I think it's a wonderful little kind of, it's a great performance by Art Carney as well. Like, he's really kind of invested in this role. Again, some people might see it as a bit stagey, a bit performancey, a bit kind of theatrical, but I think it works, and those moments I think hit harder, and the joy of the Christmas spirit and the revelry and the fun and the joy that he brings to people only works for me because it's so bleak from the get-go. But yeah, I don't know what you thought about this episode.
I think you've done an amazing job of describing that, because you made it sound a lot better than I found it watching it, if I'm honest. The quality never really bothered me. I think because you're watching an older show anyway, and obviously sometimes we're trying to find some of these older shows that aren't always readily available. You have to use certain means to watch them, and those means don't always have the best quality anyway. So that didn't really bother me. And I love all the kind of, you're right, there's kind of key points where it hits, and there's kind of that kind of true Christmas message coming through, which we spoke about at the start. And I think it, as an arc, it does that really well. It's just a bit of a slog. And I don't know whether that's because of the difficult subject matter at times, or whether that's because things were a lot slower in TV and movies, and that doesn't normally bother me. Do you know what I mean? As I said,
it does have this live feel, like, they're not that it almost feels like they've filmed it in sequence. It's just
Yeah.
them going through the sets and doing it like it was a stage play almost. It does feel a little bit like that.
Yeah, it's in no way bad. I just think, of all, I think I'd like to talk at the end about all your choices. I think there's quite a thread through all your choices that will tie them all together. There's a neat little bow at the end that we can tie, and I think this is a really good place to start. But I think of your choices, for me personally, this is probably the weakest one. It's
the only way is up now. The only way is up,
and it's only 27 minutes or something.
Yeah,
but it's sort of I felt that time as I was watching it. So yeah, that sounds quite damning, and it's not a bad episode of TV. It's just I think maybe if it. Now I'm just sitting in silence trying to articulate. I'm trying to get the thoughts that are in my head. I do this a lot, and it's not great for audio-based media.
So I'll just cut you out. It'll just be all me. We'll do it.
Absolutely. There's nothing. I'm not saying anything useful or interesting. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's just if it had been 15 minutes, maybe it had been like a short. I think I would have felt the power of what it was trying to do more. For a 27-minute episode to feel drawn out, a 30-minute episode to feel drawn out. It's not a great sign, but I like what it was trying to do.
Yeah, they gave it a good stab. I can understand probably won't be for everybody. This I don't think it's going to grab.
Dan pick that's not for everybody. Shocker.
I know, right? Probably most of my picks won't be for everybody. We'll get to them. But yeah, I think there is something to that, and yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not like it's interesting you say it's too long because they did remake this for I think the 1980s version of the show, and they did shorten it. I think they did 3 different stories within an hour.
Okay.
So will have been shortened for that. So
yeah, that makes sense to me.
So yeah, I can understand that, but I think some of the scenes are kind of integral. I'd struggle to know what they cut. I think. Because maybe the stealing of the presents I'd probably cut actually, because that just didn't really make sense for me. It kind of just came out of nowhere, and then they're a bit hypocritical because the boss is getting drunk and fired him for being drunk a little bit. But I can kind of understand where the boss is coming from still, and again he acknowledges that it's a problem, that it's an issue, and he says if I'm not drinking, I'm crying, and drinking is somewhat more socially acceptable, which is again it's saying a lot about the way that men's mental health is supposed to be. You can't be shown crying all the time. Oh no, better get fucking pissed then. That's acceptable. But yeah, no, I get what you mean. It's not perfect, but I think again I appreciate, like we've talked about this before with many things, we appreciate what's trying to be said, but maybe they don't necessarily achieve what they're going for. But again, it's the striving I think I respect. It's the striving for that message. And again, so Rod Serling was Jewish as well, and he had a is it Unitarian? Is it Unitarian wife? A Unitarian church? I'm not sure, but he married in, and her faith was a bit more flexible, I think. Whatever it is, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I think it's something like Unitarian. And that's kind of what inspired him to write several episodes. There's another one which is quite star-studded. I think it's like Another Carol for Christmas. Maybe I'll come back to that at some point in the future. There was another one that's in my honourable mentions, actually, which, again, has a Christmas theme, but it's very kind of thin and kind of, it's part of the twist. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yes, anyway, what is your next choice? And then I can say how much I did not enjoy it as well.
I'm afraid you can't, as you're about to find out, because I'm sticking in the world of sitcoms, but I'm moving over to Arrested Development. And I'm going to talk about episode 6 of season 2 called Afternoon Delight, which is just an absolute delight. I mean, for those that are not on board with Arrested Development, which is a lot of people, because even when it was on, it was not popular. It struggled throughout its run. I feel sorry for them, because when Arrested Development hits, it is absolute magic. And this is probably the best episode, arguably, of the whole kind of series. Maybe it certainly has a lot of the high points of kind of the running gags and the running jokes, and that's one of the best things about Arrested Development, is that it has these little moments that it picks up and drops and forgets about, and then we'll come back and these running gags continue. In this one, we've got the Blue Man Group being referenced several times to do with Tobias, and he's like on call for the Blue Man Group. Tobias is married into the family, but he's little and bald, and he continually paints himself up blue, hoping to get the call. The joke is fairly obvious once you think about it, but actually this is the genius of Arrested Development, is that they make the obvious funny, that when anybody from the Bluth family calls Tobias, it comes up with BLU, because it's just the first 3 letters will fit on the phone screen. So every time somebody calls him, it's like, it's the Blue Man Group. It's genius. And that's just one of the silly little subplots. The main plot is about how Will Arnett's character, Gob, or Job, is now in charge of the family business and is in charge of running the Christmas party. And Job is a dick. There is no other way of saying it. I mean, he is a lovable dick, but he is an absolute dick. The way he talks to people, the false sense of confidence he has about himself is hilarious. And the running joke in this for him is about his suit, that he's basically wearing his dad's expensive suits. And every time he talks to somebody about the suit, it goes up in value, which is just hilarious. It's like, you're drinking hot coffee around me wearing a $1,000 suit. And then each person is escalating and escalating to an absolutely ridiculous proportion. And in the show, his brother, the eldest brother, is Michael, who has kind of stepped away from running the family business, and he's taken it easy, man. But as Jason Bateman plays him, he's so anxiety ridden that even when he's taken it easy, he can't. And just absolute chaotic shenanigans ensue. The title of the show comes from a moment when Michael gets up on stage at the Christmas party, which is already a massive disaster because of Job's initial speech and his attempts at humour, like how he's alienating all the members of staff. The speech is amazing that we see him give when he's talking about, like, don't anyone go near my sister, and all these other, basically like telling him not to have fun, and he's nicked all his mum's booze in order to run the party. But Michael gets up on stage and he sings karaoke with his niece, maybe, and they sing the song Afternoon Delight, and only as they are looking into each other's eyes and singing the lyrics do they come to realise they are singing about having sex with each other. It's yeah, I mean, we're scraping the surface there of kind of the
so
joke
many gags.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, again, I'll reveal this was in my honourable mentions anyway before Jack told me he was going to include it. So I was like, well, I'm down. I'm down for this one. So there's none of me criticising this choice, because again, like for me at uni, me and my friends, we all watched this together when we were doing, acting and stuff, and it was that or Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. I think we watched kind of, and again, it just builds and builds and builds, and again, like they'll reference. It reminded me, I think the first time I ever saw kind of gags that were like kept coming back, like you'll have a long gap and then they bring back the gag, was kind of like Harry Hill stand up and Harry Hill shows where you'd have a gag and then you'd, even TV Burp had them and he'd bring back. Point. Yeah, and that I think is done here and wonderfully, and all the stories intersect in such a wonderful and natural way. Like Curb Your Enthusiasm, I love, but I can always see it coming like a mile off. It's still hilarious when you get there, but I can see it coming a mile off. With this, it's not always that clear cut what's going to happen and how these different stories are going to overlap. And I think it's just incredible writing, great actors, just performance. Like for me, like Tobias and Job are like my two favorite characters. Just superb, humorous. Again, I love the when he gives the sexual harassment seminar.
Yeah,
it's like there's not going to be any thing. Cows, it's all bleeped out.
I love that in the show.
But that kind of makes it more funny because it is bleeped out. And and he's like, everybody dance now. And he's like, everybody dance now. There's so much funny gags, and we covered way back. We covered for Wizard Month. We covered the original Doctor Strange, which has is it Lucinda Boyle? Is it the Cinder? I can't remember.
Plays the mum.
Yeah, I can't remember. Jennifer Walters, not Jennifer Walters.
Lucille plays.
Yeah, Lucille. That was it.
Lucille Bluth. Yeah. Jessica Walter. Yeah.
Jessica Walter, not Jennifer Walters is She-Hulk. I did podcasts on her as well. So yeah, she's phenomenal. I think she's one of my favorite characters again. I can never get on board with Buster, really. I didn't find him that funny, I think, for me.
No, fair enough. But I mean, he has a gag that starts in this episode, which is going to get paid off down the line as well.
Yeah, true. You are right.
Gets paid off beautifully after he wins a seal from a toy claw machine. That will
got
come
these
back
from
around.
Army, Mother. They gave me this for marksmanship. Wonderful. Yeah, he's good as that character. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of again with so many you're spoiled for choice for all your favorite characters.
I'd totally forgotten about George Michael, which is just by itself is an absolutely amazing gag, which is Michael's son, played by Michael Cera, called George Michael. About his girlfriend. I forgot about the running gag where nobody remembers her name. And as I was watching it, because it's been a few years since I've watched Arrested now, and Michael's talking about to George about oh, you're not going to come to the Booth Christmas party, it's your tradition, and then we're going to have to fix the banana stand because that gets broken every Christmas as well. And George is, no, I'm going to go off to Anne's family party, and they're heavily Christian. That's a great gag by itself when we cut away and we see what's happening there. God. But when Michael is like, oh yeah, you go and have a good time at Bland's, and I was just like absolutely creasing up. I was like, oh fuck, I totally forgot that running joke. How everyone always gets her name wrong because you say bland and boring.
That's my favorite. My favorite gag is the huh? Really?
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Huh? Like that gets me every time. Like the one gag that never really got me is the kind of the incesty cousiny thing, which never really kind of got I don't know how well it's aged now because they don't really go into it in this episode. But it was always one I was kind of like, my friends found it hilarious, so I was kind of like, didn't really work for me. Like
so maybe and George.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but again, the incest gag in this, that is good. That works for me. But
and again, they're so clever enough that they bring it, even within this 20-minute episode, they bring it back around because Lindsay and George then end up sick because they have a second Christmas party because the first one was such a disaster. Out on the deck, and then Lindsay...
they have to rehire everybody because Joe fires them all.
They have a second party, and then they recreate their moment exactly for themselves, and it's so well done that almost exactly mirrored that they look at each other like.
And the roast as well for it's all for me. It's all Job in this episode. Like he's the absolute kind of MVP of the episode. I love Will Arnett and pretty much everything he's ever been in. And that bit where he's like, oh yeah, they're gonna toast me, and they're like, they're gonna roast you. And Dad had not really a sense of humor, but they thought he did. And again, they get up the guy who's like, my wife died this year. My kids don't talk to me anymore. He's like roast me. And then every time he roasts him, he just gets really aggressive and angry. He's like, I wish you were fucking dead. That kind of thing. And yeah, just and again, like we talked about, it's not more than 20 minutes, but they fit so much in. They fit so much into the space and that time. And again, almost like an airplane where you can't move for gags. So even if you miss one, you've got another one like 2 seconds later, which you're gonna fucking piss yourself at.
Fake gags as well, because they always do that. They do the kind of the
cutaways
fake ends of the show as well, where it's like next episode this is going to happen, and it never does. You got Ron Howard doing the voiceover. It's a brilliant show. It loses its way slightly in the later seasons when it has to film around people's schedules, but the first 2 seasons of Arrested Development are elite sitcom comedy TV.
Oh, so good. And again, I think it's kind of around that era of the kind of Office and that kind of in-camera kind of documentary style kind of filmmaking. And again, it could not work for some certain things, but there's, I'm sure you've got choices coming up, I think, where that they use that style again. But just superb comedy on every level. So yeah, I'm not going to poo-poo this choice at all. On any level. But yeah, anything else you want to mention about that one?
I mean, we could sit here and just laugh along with each other, retelling all the jokes, but I'm not sure how much fun that is for anybody else. They should probably just go and watch the episode.
Just go watch it. We're just going to tell the jokes poorly. That's all we're going to do.
Exactly.
So yeah, go and give that a go. Right. So next, I'm going to go for my weirdest and wildest choice. You're a big Sam Raimi fan, so am I. And he took to TV to produce a couple of shows back in the mid-90s, which I was a big fan of. So we had Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and we also had the spin-off and arguably more successful show, Xena, Warrior Princess, with Lucy Lawless. And again, Bruce Campbell was in both of those shows as Autolycus, was it? Autolycus, the Prince of Thieves, I think he was called.
Now, I will say here, I don't want to interrupt you, but until watching this episode, I have never seen a single second of Hercules or Xena.
No
so
way.
Yes, I love Sam Raimi's film output, but I've never seen either of these shows.
Right. Well, this what a way to come in, Jack. What a way to introduce these shows to you. So they play. So Xena played quite fast and loose with their timeline. They would. She was like a lover of Julius Caesar. She was knocking about with David of David and Goliath. She's knocking around with Hercules and those kind of characters as well. So it's not really. Not real consistencies with
accents from the actors in the show.
No, absolutely, especially the children, especially those New Zealand children. Good, fair play to them. But yes, there is a bit of that. But it has that kind of goofy charm that I think a lot of Sam Raimi projects have. And this one is the weirdest and wildest, probably Christmas special you've ever seen. And there's a lot. They fit in a lot in the time span in this one, which is about 45 minutes or so. Xena and Gabrielle, she has a friend or lover, who, however you want to feel.
Now, is it? And then they become...
Yeah, maybe. I think so. Again, I've not seen... It's been a while since I watched Xena, but I did watch, again, a smattering of episodes here and there. Same with Hercules. And this was a double bill as well. There was a Hercules holiday special, and there was a Xena holiday special showed on the same day. And I'll talk about how they're connected, these two pieces. But Gabrielle and Xena end up in a new town, and they are robbed by a small child of her, I can't remember what it's called, but that little blade, that kind of glaive thing she has, like Blade has, and that she throws. And
like the
and Gabrielle
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, yeah, kind of that thing. There's a name for it, but I'm blanking on the name. I want to say like a shaka or something like that. But yeah, it gets stolen by a child, and they end up in this orphanage, and it's around the solstice. So the solstice carol. I forgot to say it was called, the episode is season 2, episode 9, A Solstice Carol. So it's about the winter holiday, but we're not quite Christmas just yet. But we'll get to it. And yes, and they end up at this orphanage, and they're in a town that is run by, I believe, called King Silver, I want to say. And he is a cruel, angry, horrible old man, broken-hearted man, and he has cancelled all Christmas or all solstice holiday celebrating toys or gift giving. All cancelled. And also...
Very Sheriff of Nottingham from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yes, very much so. It doesn't look too far off as well, like an older version. And he is shutting down an orphanage because they can't pay the taxes or what have you. And Xena become embroiled in this kind of plot, and they realise the only way to stop him is to... basically Scrooge him, let's say. Let's do a Christmas carol. So they pretend to be the three fates. So Gabrielle, her, and another party that I'll get into, who runs the orphanage, plays that final role. And it's to convince him of the error of his ways. And he has a assistant, a kind of a Bob Cratchit type, called Centocles. I wonder who he might become. So between all of them, they manage to, again, like Gabrielle's very keen on not having any bloodshed because it's the holiday season. She's like, can we not kill anybody, please, Xena? You're known for killing people. And she's like, okay. And then she uses the kind of blade that she throws. She ties them up in Christmas ribbons, gift wraps them. And eventually they're trying to show, quite haphazardly, a lot of comedy, a lot of goofy fun to be had in this episode, the error of this king's ways. And throughout we learn that Centocles, this kind of cowardly, jolly, old, fat man, is a secret maker of toys, and, he wants to bring joy to children and people. And they even team up with a little donkey as well. We're fitting all of the different elements in, the Bible, Greek myths, Winter's Tale.
Yeah, we literally get Joseph
Christmas
and Mary at the end, don't we?
Yeah, I was going to say as well. So they managed to do this, and again, don't worry, there's still some butt kicking by Xena at the end, because there needs to be, because it's Xena the Warrior Princess. You need it at the end. And yes, and we learn throughout the show that the reason he's so cruel and heartless is because his heart was broken and his wife left him. But initially, somebody said she died, but it's revealed later she had left. And the final fate, who's trying to teach him the error of his ways, turns out to be the runner of the orphanage, who turns out to be his former wife, and he changes everything, changes his mind, and turns over a new leaf. And yes, And just to end the episode, so in the previous episode, Hercules escorts 3 men to a manger on a special evening and finds a newborn baby and a couple. And this same couple, at the end of the episode, are seen walking towards Gabrielle, and Xena is there leaving after they've saved Christmas, so to speak. And they're like, oh, is there any, where's the town? How far have we got to go? And Gabrielle gives up her sidekick donkey to them, as a gift. And again, Xena's not really into Christmas, and eventually in the end of the episode she's convinced herself and gives Gabrielle a little gift as well. And also Centocles falls down a chimney. That's the way they enter the building as well, breaking it on the way down, and he's ho-ho-hoing. This is absolutely insane, this episode.
Yeah.
But I kind of love it. I kind of think they've just gone, how much can we fit in this? Let's just throw it all at the wall and hope it all sticks. And again, just baby Jesus, Santa, Christmas Carol, everything. Throw it all in. Xena's there. Gabrielle's there. We're having a great time. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's bizarre, but I had a lot of fun and I had a lot of time for it. I don't know about you, Jack.
When it first started, I was thinking, "Oh my god, this is gonna be come back to that. This is gonna be a slog. This is gonna be hard work." And actually, the first 10 minutes are pretty tough, but then once it gets into the story, goofy fun, as you described, is the only way you can describe it. All the Christmas Carol Scrooge and stuff is bonkers, but is good fun bonkers. I will say the final twist of the ex-wife, or the separate wife of running the orphanage, that is bullshit. But
of course,
the idea of that idea of like her leaving him, and obviously all that harkens back to Christmas Carol origin anyway. So yeah, as soon as it kind of got into the meat of the story, I was like, okay, let's go with it. This is going to be silly. But I guess the only reason I found that first 10 minutes difficult is because I wasn't attuned to the world of Xena. I think if I'd been watching the show, that first 10 minutes would have felt like a normal 10 minutes of Xena. So I think if I'd gone on and watched the next episode, I wouldn't have felt that, because I just would have been in the flow of kind of what I should expect from the show. I mean, it's very clear everyone's just having fun.
Definitely.
When I was reading about it afterwards, and it was about, there's continuity errors. I was like, no shit. Clearly nobody gives a fuck about anything like that on this show. There's just no interest in that. It's like, what are we going to do today? Great, let's do that. Can we use that prop from last week? Yeah, we use that prop again. Yeah. It's definitely got that vibe all about it, and good for it. Like, cheap as chips, having fun, silly plots, like very charismatic, to be fair. Obviously, Lucy Lawless went on to be a big star, obviously, but of course, the actress that plays Gabrielle, they've got good chemistry, so I can see why it hit. I can see why people came to enjoy it. And I can also see where the kind of legacy went. Things like, I've never watched it, but things like that Spartacus show, and I know they're more grown up and serious, but I can kind of see where the legacy of this has led to that as well.
I can see a little bit of Buffy DNA coming from this as well. I can definitely see a little bit. I mean, it's not... Yeah. It's definitely not the same tone or the same, but there's a little bit of that humor and that playfulness, I think, that's there. Again, I think Buffy's much more of a serious show in general, with a bit more of kind of the goofy, funny gags and stuff. But there is that energy there, I think, and strong lead, strong female lead, kicking butt and not asking questions. I think there is genuinely, I think you can draw a line between those two shows. Again, not exactly the same and on any level, but I think there is some connective tissue there, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I would watch more Xena. I don't know if I would seek out more Xena. That's how I put it. Like, I enjoyed it. It was fun, but I'm not racing to my local HMV to pick up the Xena box set.
Sure. I don't think they'd stock it, but...
And I don't have a local HMV because it's shut down, but you take my point.
Absolutely. Yeah, proper weird, but I think if you're in tune with, if you watch Evil Dead 2 and then tune into this, it's the same kind of vibe. It's that kind of, Three Stooges kind of wacky, goofy silliness. Some fun had with the donkey, and stuff like that. But there's some heart to it too, and there's some, good messages and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had, but you've got to embrace the absolute fucking insanity of it if you're going to enjoy it. If you take it seriously on any level, you absolutely will not.
Totally fair.
Oh, what is next for you, Jack?
So here's where we hit the kind of reason it's a top 3 is kind of like as we reveal these shows, it's going to be, oh, of course, Jack going on about that bloody show again. Jack going on about that bloody show again that he loves, that he's talked about for hours already on podcasts. I mean, you mentioned Buffy, so let's talk about her right now. My third favorite Christmas episode would be season 3, episode 10 of Buffy, which is called Amends, which is the show where it kind of centers around Angel, which I'll be honest, are not often my favorite episodes of Buffy. And when I covered Buffy with Tony for Season's Greetings on Comics in Motion, this didn't feature in my favorite or best of that season.
All right.
You will know that because obviously you were on
that
season talking about it with us because you're a big Maya fan.
Yes, that's right. It was season that same season. Yes, I remember this. I remember it. I don't think it was in my picks either. But in this context, I can see why you picked it.
Yeah, I think it's a really actually watching it as a standalone outside of the season, outside of the series, is actually a pretty strong episode of TV of Buffy. It contains all the elements of the show that you would want to see in terms of the characters and storytelling. Tony often talks about like my favorite episode of season 2 is Halloween because you could watch that separately and know everything you need to know about Buffy. I think you probably could do that with Amends. I think you could probably watch it and understand who all the characters are, how they relate to one another, and also it's tied into Christmas and it has that kind of nice Christmassy message at the end. So in this episode, we're coming to the end of the arc of Angel being returned from the Hell Dimension that Buffy sent him to at the end of season 2, in probably the coolest moment in all of Buffy history when she catches the sword and then turns it back on him and sends him off to the Hell Dimension. So he comes back and he doesn't know why, and he's really struggling with his purpose. Now he's back on Earth. Buffy's kept it a secret. He's back from the Scooby Gang and from Giles because of what Angel did when he was Angelus. The worst of that being killing Jenny Calendar, a former teacher of the school, and Giles's Squeeze, which is very tragic and brilliantly realised in the show during season 2. So it's all kind of come out just before this episode. So that's where we're starting this episode, I suppose. And then throughout this episode, Angel is being haunted. And that's going to become really important later in Buffy, kind of talking about breadcrumbs and where shows are going to go. He's being haunted by the First, who wants to kind of send him down a spiral so that he will attack and feed off Buffy, potentially killing her, turn full evil again, but also eliminate the Slayer from Sunnydale, which they probably didn't mean this, but now when you think about season 7, actually, as an arc, makes sense. The First is trying to get Buffy out of the way in order to get its big plans going for a few years' time. So kind of retconning that history makes sense too, which is really interesting. But like I say, I think you get really nice moments between all the characters here. Like Giles, who has no reason to forgive Angel and help Angel, does, because that's who Giles is. Angel comes to his door, knocks on his door and says, I need help. And Giles lets him in, only after arming himself with a crossbow, of course, which is cool, which is a cool moment. Buffy and Faith have a really nice kind of reconciliation moment in this. They've not been getting on at this point. Faith is the new Slayer that's come to town. She's kind of the bad girl, sexy Slayer to Buffy's kind of blonde do-gooder Slayer, I suppose. So they've not been getting on, but they have a lovely moment when Buffy invites her to Christmas. Faith doesn't want to come initially, but then she turns up at the door and says, my plans fell through. Actually, no, the truth is I never had any plans. Can I come in? And that's really sweet and really nice and will be important as we move forwards too. Certain characters that I know neither of us are fan because of who he's become in real life as a person. Nicholas Brendan is, we'll mention his name, but we won't do much more, as we won't with the creator of the show. But, Xander gets a moment actually where he's not full douche in this, which is very rare, but he gets to not be full douche. And there's a beautiful moment in this episode. It's some of the best bits of the early seasons that kind of we lose as the show continues is the Scooby Gang all together doing their research. I love these montage moments when they're all sat reading books and talking about things they found. And here Buffy's like, oh, I've read that one already. And these moments where like they just all lump in and they all do whatever it takes to find the answer. And because it's not pre-internet, but pre-internet as we know it, that means reading lots of books. So all of that's great. And I think it's a strong plot, and you're getting to see a bit more of the history of Angel and how truly awful he was with Angelus is always really interesting. I will leave you to talk about those flashbacks because I know you have a particular thing that you want to talk about that we'll get to in a minute. But the episode ends with Angel basically deciding that he wants to commit suicide, that he can't take this anymore, that he won't risk hurting Buffy, so he's going to stand out at Sunnydale and let the sun come up and fry him to a crisp. But some powers that be, which again is a term which becomes important later in the show. Somehow there's a snowstorm on Christmas morning in Sunnydale in California. And that means that in this world, without full sunlight, for those that don't know, vampires don't crisp up. Move to Liverpool, move to Scotland, you'll be fine. So because it's a snowy day, it means that he's going to survive, and it's another sign for him that perhaps he is here for a purpose, and that purpose will be good, because if it was a bad purpose, then whoever it is that's made this happen, whatever it is that's made this happen, would have let him die. You kind of have that nice hopeful Christmas message at the end, and you get snow. I mean, some of the snow is the fakest
it looks
snow you've
awful. It was
ever seen.
Is it shaving foam? It does look like when they're walking through it. It looks.
That's
like
it. It's when they're
foam.
walking through like Sunnydale High Street. There's bits because they've got and it's clearly just like bits of foam that they've stuck on top of the phone boxes and newspaper boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
But that moment is really well realised, because Sarah Michelle Gellar is an underrated actress, and that's mad to say because she's really rated, but she is so good as Buffy. Like, you cannot underestimate how good she is. And the moment up on the hilltop when she's getting emotional with Angel saying like, I can't let you go again, it's too hard. She's so good. And then you have this like beautiful moment of them walking hand in hand through the streets. It just does all those things that Buffy does really well. It's really funny, but it's really emotional too. And I think as a standalone episode, you could watch it and you'd understand who everybody is. You get a nice moment with Willow and Oz, and you understand their relationship.
I love that. I really love that.
They're healing after Cordelia and Oz caught Willow and Xander kissing, and so there's loads going on. Again, it's another episode where there's loads going on, but I think it handles all the individual character stories and their interrelations really well. That someone that's never seen Buffy before, here's a Christmas episode, watch Amends, what do you think? Oh, I really like this character. I really relate to this character. Oh, I really want to know what's going to happen to these people moving forwards. I think now watching it in isolation, I feel stronger about the episode than I have done recently when I've done a full coverage of the whole bloody series.
I like it, but I don't love it, I think, as an episode. I think you are correct. I think there's some great character stuff, even with Xander and Giles especially. The flashbacks with Angel. I think the weak point in the episode for me is Angel and the acting that Angel does, especially when he's being like, I'm being tormented. Oh, go away. Don't talk to me. I felt like that was a bit kind of cliche, and it's a bit, I see what they're doing and know what they're trying to attempt, and they're trying to, get him to a point where he wants to attack Buffy and take her and have her. I like the Jenny comes back and haunts him. I think that's a really good device. And
she's brilliant at doing that as well.
She's so good at being like sinister and stuff. I like the idea of the first evil. I think that's a cool concept. The idea of that it's the personification of the first evil act, which I guess is like Cain killing Abel or something. But yeah, I think that works. And I like when they go to the bar and they have the demon bar and they try and intimidate the guy, which is great. Again, Angel's Irish accent is fucking atrocious. It's really bad. This is someone who did an Irish accent, and Irish people came up to me and said that's really good. So I think I know when there's a bad one, and that is atrocious. But yeah, again, that's my feelings on that and that character and those performances. But yeah, I do think that ending works. Again, that fringe they give Buffy has Courtney Cox scream level. It gives that fringe a run for its money, I think, just in this one episode. She has it.
I did ask for one.
Yeah, she has it. She doesn't have it. She has it. She doesn't have
that
it.
Shit off.
Yeah, it kept, between scenes, it disappear, and I was like, right, okay. Like you said with Willow, I like that she kind of goes, I'm Jewish, and references that and stuff. Again, nice bit of kind of inclusion there. And, Xander having his own kind of tradition, which is him sleeping outside to avoid his parents arguing and stuff at Christmas. Again, I think it is a good episode. I don't think it's a great episode, but I think the strength of it is like you said, Sarah Michelle Gellar and that performance. I think she gives a lot in this episode and really grounds it. And and those little character moments and bringing those characters together and forgiving each other and finding a way to still be friends and family at this time of year, I think is a great little message. But yeah, not perfect, but still pretty darn good, I think, as TV goes.
Yeah, totally fair. I love the moment when, talking about Sarah Michelle Gellar. Let's just do that for another hour, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
I love the moment when the first reveals itself to Buffy, and it's doing the grandstanding speech. You know, I am the first evil you cannot conceive of me. She's like, oh, whatever. Like you're another thing I've got to face. It's brilliant. It's just so Buffy, which is And
again, she's confronted with literally something that would terrify most people. I think there was an Alan Moore Swamp Thing comic where he faces the first evil, if I remember rightly. I think that was like during the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is and again, I think he asks a question or something, and then the first evil can't answer it, and it's kind of like, oh shit, maybe I need to rethink this. It's something like that. It's something really kind of quite clever and poignant and stuff. I love that. I thought that is just pure, like that's like badass Buffy moment, and says a lot about her character and how she feels, and again, it builds nicely. Again, you kind of have to have the weird monks in there just so she can punch somebody, but they didn't really do much for me, to be honest. And again, it kind of didn't really explain why Angel's back, but I think that gets explained later in the season or another season maybe, or I can't remember. But
I don't know if it ever is fully explained. It's just, well, I think we're led to believe the powers that be bring him back because they need him for their mission.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea when they bring him back and he's a bit like mad from being in a hell dimension for however long. Yeah, he's a bit feral and he's trying to find it back, and he's got his soul back, and he's like feels bad for all the things he's done, even worse than he did before because he's gotten close to these people. And again, they have these kind of imagined love scenes because they're in each other's dreams. I think that's a kind of cool element as well. So like, it's a solid, again, not won't ever make my top 10 Buffy lists or yours, I imagine, but episodes, or even, I mean, like it didn't do that season, but then we're talking like top tier TV there. But even this, being on the lower end of a Buffy spectrum, is still pretty solid. Anything else you want to say about it at all? Or?
No, just other than, it's a lifelong love affair. It will never go away. And I can't remember who sent the clip earlier. Was it yourself maybe? Or
yes.
Yesterday?
Yeah. When she's
Sarah Michelle Gellar at the conference. Oh, be still my heart.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's like a new show. I can't remember what the show is exactly.
She's in the Dexter prequel.
Don't worry. That was it. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know. Yeah, definitely. Because you did that other one that was kind of like a werewolf or Teen Wolf spin-off, I think.
I didn't watch that, but
fair enough.
If Angel can be hundreds of years old and be allowed to be in love with Sarah Michelle Gellar, aka Buffy, I can be in my 40s and still be in love with her. It's fine.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But he's 100 and she's like 16, so it's questionable at best.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's magical. It's not like he's like 50 or something.
No.
He's got more of a magical edge. Anyway.
I think he was a teenager when he was turned, so
Sure.
he's still kind of...
I see what you're saying. That's the get out clause, is it?
Yeah.
That's the Twilight angle, anyway. That's the Twilight.
Absolutely.
That's the Twilight excuse as well. So if it's okay in Twilight, it's okay here. Right. Well, moving on. So another choice that very much shows me. I'm a big superhero fan. I'm a big kind of comedy fan. Parody, pastiche satire. So we've got to go with the Monty Python-esque cartoon TV series, which was out. This is the height of all the 1990s cartoon superhero shows, but it's quite different. It's quite bizarre. It's quite weird. It is The Tick. Again, like one of my favorites. This is kind of X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman era, and this still is up there for me, even now. The brand of humor, just the weirdness and wackiness, and again, lots of, much like Arrested Development, just full of wild characters, wild and weird characters, even ones that sound like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, just full of bizarre characters and parodies and of all these kind of characters you love. And this is from season 2, episode 10. So we're well into the stride of the Tick TV show, the animated series, and it is The Tick loves Santa. And who doesn't? But The Tick is still under the impression, even as an adult, even as a crime-fighting superhero, that Santa is real. However, all the world tells him it's not, that he's not. He's very into Christmas. He's very passionate about Christmas, passionate about everything, crime, justice, you name it. Lots of enthusiasm, and it doesn't change when it comes to Christmas. He's got sugar plums dancing in his head. And there is a thief that is running around and steals a Santa costume. and trying to avoid the police, and the tick believes that to be the Santa, and the cops are hunting him, and he thinks that they've made a mistake. The police must have made a mistake. It's Santa. Look at him. He's jolly. I don't think you understand. He's jolly. And the Santa, the guy in question, falls off a roof and hilariously electrocutes himself to death on a... on a sign, and falls into the snow, and Santa feels responsible, the tick feels responsible, for killing Santa. What a way to open a kid's show. Amazing, brilliant way. But he goes into a deep depression. He goes into his seasonal blues, his winter blues. He's already blue anyway, so it makes him even more blue. And then everybody at this Christmas party is like, Santa isn't real. He's like, I've heard about people like you. You who don't believe in Santa. He's like, yeah, well, this. And they get into it, and we learn as well that the thief who was electrocuted is actually alive, but is able to multiply himself, much like the multiple man from Marvel Comics, from X-Men, into several different clones. And every time he gets electrocuted, he creates more clones. And he uses this power to go on a crime spree. He calls himself the Multiple Santa, because of course you do. What else would you call yourself? And chaos ensues. And then the tick and the rest of the group, Deflate a Mouse, American Maid, Sewer Urchin, and various other weird and wacky other superheroes from the show go out and caroling after the party, and they try to fight off these Santas, but the tick can't find the will to punch Santa in the face because he loves him so much. And he's very confused by the whole thing. And the only thing that abates this is that he gets a visit by the real Santa Claus and Santa's Secret Service as well, which are elves and various things. And he sits on Santa's lap, even though he's huge, and he convinces him that particular Santa is evil and not him, and he needs to go and sock him in the mouth. But even when he gets there to fight the Santa, he can't bring himself to punch him, but instead he gives him a noogie, and the static electricity destroys all the clones. But yes, and yeah, just a wonderful, fun, anarchic, silly episode. Again, a lot of goofy fun to be had in this episode, and very much available on YouTube if you want to watch it. But yeah, I love this, and I think the kind of cutaway gags or the side characters are talking about, why do you think Christmas is so depressing? Is it the lost childhood, or is it that we've been fired 3 times this week? Just wonderful, wonderful humour, and zany, weird, and wild, which is what I like best.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed this. I think, if memory serves me right, The Tick was one of those kind of golden BBC Two shows between that kind of 6 o'clock and 7:30 slot, where we used to get The Tick, Fresh Prince, Ren and Stimpy, Quantum League, Buffy, Star Trek, TNG. It was this slot which I often reference a lot, which is in my head. Everything good was on TV, and that kind of 90 minutes on BBC Two. And I think this Tick animated show was one of those. Yeah, it's. I mean, we said Xena was bonkers. It's nothing compared to The Tick. I don't remember the show well, but I remember enjoying it. And this is just, it's brilliant. It knows exactly what it's doing all the way through. I love the voices are so well chosen. Whoever was the supervisor, the casting supervisor for this, and picked all the voices, just did a wonderful job. We talk about Kevin Conroy, and you read Batman comics and you hear his voice. For those people who read Tick comics, I imagine it must be this, if they exist anymore. I don't know, but when they did, if they don't, I'm sure it was the same thing. Like, you're hearing all these characters' voices in your head; they're just so wonderfully chosen. Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense, but it doesn't need to, because it just needs to be, as you said, anarchic and fun. I mean, the real Santa turning up, and is that how it works? Static electricity is the opposite of electricity.
How do the electric clones work? If you're going to challenge that, Jack, you've got to challenge the man who can create his own electric clones.
I mean, I don't care, because as you've said, and I've said several times, it's just really good fun. I think this is probably one of your choices with the least clear message.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah,
I think most of yours are quite message driven. This one is just like, fuck it, it's Christmas. Let's just be silly and have fun, and that's fine too. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Again, I've got them all on DVD in the UK. They brought them out on DVD, so I've still got them somewhere. And I do I think out of all of the shows I think I watched, that was the one I feel like I want to revisit most. I think, and like just kind of other than Arrested Development, which I do feel like I need to do like a full rewatch of that, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to be honest. But yeah, I think it was just a fun show. There's some great kind of psychological kind of torment and drama in some of the episodes, and he goes to like a psychiatrist, and there's all these kind of wacky and weird villains like in the I love the moon in it, because in like 2 episodes, like Chairface Chippendale, one of the villains in it, who's just has the face of a chair, tries to carve his own name in it in an early episode, and then I think a Galactus character takes a bite out of the moon because he's hungry, like a parody on that character, and that remains throughout the show. Like they always use that version of the moon, which is again a wonderful little bit of detail. It's got an amazing, like, if you just go through all the actors who are in it, just wonderful voice casting, and again it works as just a superhero show. If you weren't even like, if you didn't like get as a kid, if you didn't get the humor or the gags, it is very adult themed or orientated, those gags. Even the diner is very like Norman Rockwellian or kind of Twin Peaks-esque. There's a lot of those kind of references and stuff. And again, I love it. And yeah, I can't not enjoy it. And this is one of the ones I always remembered and always had the most fun with in general. So yeah, it's something I'll always kind of love and appreciate. And again, it's very much a me choice, and you can see where I'm coming at from who I am and why I am when you see stuff like this, when I bring this into the light for people to see. It's very much a show made for me at the time. And again, and it's something I kind of understood. I could intellectually get it because I knew the kind of stuff it was making fun of already, and the kind of parodying those kind of shows that were already really popular, and pastiche and satire and stuff. And we'll get back to that as well a little later in one of my other choices. But yeah, go and check it out. 20 minutes, you'll breeze through it. You'll have a great time. Again, great action, great animation. The music I always think is great. The kind of the theme song is so fucking weird, which is what I love. Just kind of like scat jazz with this fucking superhero show. Weird as fuck, but I love it.
Yeah, the animation style is so like iconic for that era. It's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I guess we're going to say that because of we're not similar in ages, but we're close enough in that we have some crossover in some things we watch. But as you know, we've had the X-Men revival this year that you covered brilliantly. Yes. But that kind of animated style, very similar to this here. I think of Turtles as well, kind of just the end of that kind of Turtles run, fitting into this, not the early stuff, but the end. So yeah, it all kind of fits into this era. And yeah, when I think of something being animated, this is what it looks like in my head. Yeah,
still works. Still, still slaps on every level. It's not, there's nothing wrong with kids shows now and animated shows now. They're very different, and it's a different vibe. But yeah, this for me was the era of like absolute peak children's TV animation. But again, I was a child during this time, so I'm going to say that properly. But that's just me. And again, I like stuff that has an edge of darkness. Even kids stuff, I think, needs a little bit of darkness. Most fairy tales got to have a slither of darkness. Or again, you've got to make the perilous in order to have those kind of releases of tension as well, and the joy and the fun, and the musical, interludes and stuff. So yeah, but that's my opinion mostly. But what's next for you with your holiday specials?
Yes, next for me is a very special show. I think you mentioned the kind of, back in the world of sitcoms, you mentioned that idea of kind of the single camera and like talking to camera and breaking the fourth wall and The Office. I've never really got on board with the American Office. It may be amazing, and maybe one day I will get through it and I will understand, but I felt that first season hewed too close, particularly the first couple of episodes, hewed too close to what I already knew of the UK one. So I was like, why would I bother? I understand it's got a massive cult following and it probably is brilliant. However, I think it pales in comparison to a show which spun out, I suppose, of The Office's success, which is Parks and Rec. So I picked season 4, episode 10, which is called Citizen Nope. Parks and Rec is the show with the nicest people in the entire world. Just everybody is amazing. That's the characters as such, particularly Leslie, because they all come to be kind of driven into being the nicest people by Leslie. And that's going to be important when I talk about this episode. But then you look at the cast and what they went on to do and who they are. It's just ridiculous. You know, Chris Pratt, he went on to do a couple of things, didn't he?
Yeah.
Aubrey Plaza, she's gone on to do all right. And that's just, two of the names. It's another one of these shows. We talked about Arrested, we talked about Brooklyn, where it's got a brilliant kind of ensemble. And that's definitely true here. And this show is all about them trying to give back to Leslie. So she spends every waking second of her life trying to improve the parks of Pawnee, but also trying to improve the lives of everybody that she meets. Amy Poehler went on to play Joy in Inside Out. I mean, there isn't a better voice for that. That is kind of who Leslie is here as well. She is just a bundle of joy, and all she wants to do, like I say, is just make people's lives better. But she's at a low point. She's at a low ebb in this episode. She's been running for local council, and the scandals come out that she's been sleeping with Ben in the office. They've got a relationship. So she's on suspension, and he's quit in disgrace. It's the second time in his life he's quit in disgrace. He was the mayor of his small town where
child mayor,
and he had to quit in disgrace there too. So she's at a low ebb. She's not allowed to run her campaign. So she's filling her time, and she starts to fill her time. She starts a group up, which is, I can't remember what they're called now. I think they're called
PCP.
Mom. Oh, PCP. Yeah. That's right.
PCP.
Okay, yeah. But whilst that's going on, that's kind of her story. Leslie's almost kind of the background character of this episode, which is really interesting. She's the Jake Peralta of Parks. She's kind of the main character, but there's this big ensemble who get a lot of time around her in the episode. They're trying to find a way to make her feel special. And what Anne comes up with is building a little office of the Parks and Rec department to make her feel like she's still here and she's still part of it, which is a beautiful idea. Ron Swanson is one of my favourite characters of all TV of all time. I think anybody who's watched Parks and Rec probably feel the same. I'm assuming Andy feels the same, because barely a week goes by without us seeing the Ron Swanson gif of him throwing his computer in the dumpster. But Ron's all up for it. He's like, great, yeah, I've got some wood, and I'm going to carve, and I'm going to do this. And he's so like classic kind of man, but it's always pay for laughs. It's brilliant. But they decided to put it out of gingerbread, and that just throws up all its own hilarious moments where Ron can't work with gingerbread. It's so funny. So he's smashing up and getting angry. I watched this show around about lunchtime on a day when I was home by myself, and I was sat on my sofa at the end of this episode absolutely weeping. It's beautiful. The final moment in this episode when they present Leslie the gift, and she realizes that people think about her in the same way that she thinks about them, and this is a really special thing that they've done for her, because they've all created themselves out of their own little designs, and put themselves in the parks department. It's beautiful, and knowing how much these people mean to each other. But it's something that Parks, the reason I'm pausing is probably because I'm going to start crying in a minute thinking about it, but also because it's something that Parks does all the time. And I spoke about Scrubs, I spoke about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, how they balance that kind of humor and pathos. I don't think there's a better show ever made than Parks that manages to do this, that is slapsticky, raucously, stupidly funny, mostly around Chris Pratt's character of Andy. And I know he's got a bad rep nowadays. I personally don't get it. In Parks and Rec, he is fucking dynamite. There's a reason why he went on to be who he became and got cast in the MCU and in Jurassic World, and it's because of who he is in Parks. He is so charismatic. He is so funny. He plays the part of Andy perfectly, and he has a brilliant arc because he's a dumb dick at the start, and he's not by the end. He's still dumb, but he's a dumb, thoughtful, wonderful human being by the end. It's brilliant, and I love it. Little sidebar, when he gets cast in Guardians and he has to leave Parks for a while, and he comes back and he's super buff, and they're like, shit, how do we write around this? Because he's in Parks, he's always kind of a bigger guy, he's got a gut on him because he doesn't care. That's hilarious, and they have to write around it. But yeah, there's not a better show on TV that literally in the space of about 30 seconds will have you laughing your head off and then crying your eyes out. And this is a really strong episode of doing that because of what these people managed to do for Leslie. Yeah, it's beautiful. And again, it's that, Christmas time, putting other people first. And to reference Buffy again, where do we go from here?
This isn't a show I've watched religiously. I think I've seen the first season and the second season. I don't know if I've gone much further than that. Not that I did. Again, not that I think it dropped off in quality or I didn't like it. I very much did. I know. Originally in that first season, she was more of a kind of a Ricky Gervais like character.
Yeah,
and they kind of switched it, and I think that was probably for the best.
100%.
And I know they dropped one of the actors as well, or he left. Or
what's interesting is it's around about halfway through season 2, and that sounds crazy to ask you to go through a season and a half of a show to get good. But I think the first season is only something like 12 episodes long. It's not long. And then it gets picked up and it becomes like the 2022.
Yeah.
And about halfway through season 2, Adam Scott comes in as Ben.
Yes.
And he's just wonderfully doofusy and charming. But also Rob Lowe comes in as the new boss.
Yes. Yeah.
As Chris, who's like this fitness obsessed guy. Fucking hell. Those two characters come in. You're right. They tweak Leslie in season 2, and then these two guys come in, and the whole show just lifts and elevates. And what they do is they realize the value of everyone around them as well. They start giving Aubrey Plaza more to do. They start giving Chris Pratt more to do. They start giving, why is his name escaping me now? Who plays Ron Swanson?
Oh, Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman. Start giving him more to do. They scale back slightly on Aziz Ansari, which is, he's kind of a one-note character, which is not his fault. He's great in it, and he's gone on to do great things. But his character is a little bit one note. So they sort of start thinking about how they're going to make the show grow. So yeah, it might be something worth you picking back up, because actually where you dropped out is where it starts getting really good.
Yeah, I think so, and I've enjoyed like memes and stuff and clips and things that I've seen. But yeah, I really like this episode. I think you're right. I think there is very much some DNA of Arrested Development, which she was in. Leslie Knope was in, and
Amy Poehler,
Yeah, Amy Poehler, and also, very much The Office is kind of inspired a little bit here. I think it's kind of almost like a meshing of the two, but also like a little bit of that real positivity from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is in here. That kind of stew, if you will. I really had a lot of fun. Again, I think them all thinking and bending over backwards and finding a way, and her struggling. I love that she comes in, even though she's been suspended, to take her work home with her, and they're like, "You can't do this. You're fired." And like most of the places would be like, "Yeah, if you want to do some work while you're not working for us, sure, just go and do it." But they're like, "No, we're not. This is the point of this is you must have a break." And she's trying to become the next mayor, I think, or the next representative.
No, she wants to be a city council.
That was it, city council. Yeah, so she wants to be elected, and she's trying for that. But because of the scandalous scandal, which is not really that big a deal.
It's nothing.
But they kind of make it out like it's this huge scandal. And again, Adam Scott like being down on his luck and trying to go for interviews, and he doesn't really know what he wants to do. And I love that his motivation is what's his name, the character that comes in and takes the job. What's his?
Oh, Jean Ralphio.
John Ralphio, yeah, he comes in and is like, and he's kind of being nice, but then later on, like the cutaway gag is that he's tried to get in for the job. He's like, "Oh, I'm not trained, I've not got any qualifications, and I'm also going to sexual harass all your staff." And he's like, "You're fired." And he's like, "Yeah, makes sense." And he walks out. Straight, he like walks through the entire office, and then you're fired, and then he just walks out the door. Amazing, brilliant. He's got a new film coming out, Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
who knew they were going to make 3 of those? But they're here, like them or not. But yeah, no, I thought it was great. I like Nick Offerman. I think he's a phenomenal actor anyway. You just need to see Last of Us for that. But he was always good. I think I liked his comedy special as well. I remember him doing like woodwork or something during the comedy special he did, which again, very, very on brand for him. And I like when his real wife comes in. What's her name from Will and Grace? She's brilliant.
Megan Mullally, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tammy too.
That's right. Yeah, she's great.
I've watched Parks and Rec a couple of times. I don't know if anybody's picked up.
Yeah, maybe. Some great stuff, and Adam Scott kind of depression and trying to find himself and stuff.
But he does love calzone. Adam Scott and I have got that.
Yeah, good man.
I mean, who doesn't love a good calzone?
I mean, it's just pizza flipped on its side. Nothing to dislike.
I think I neglected to mention, but you talking about that makes me think of it like the montage when you see all the gifts that Leslie's got for them is wonderful.
Yeah.
Particularly when Ron's like, Leslie is so thoughtful, it's annoying. She always gives really nice gifts, so I don't know why he's that kind of curmudgeonly character, but really, as you said before, that classic, there's a heart underneath. And he's like, she's outdone herself this year. And he's got a little gleeful, little child's smile on his face, and he presses his clicker button. and she's automated his doors so they close without him having to get up from his desk. It's brilliant, and it says everything you need to know about Ron Swanson in that one moment.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He doesn't want to be disturbed. He doesn't want to talk to people. He's very like, I don't do people. I don't do communication. I don't want to talk to all these other kind of bureaucrats and stuff. I just want to get on, do my thing, keep, have my peace and quiet, my sanctity. And Leslie knows that, even though she'll try and get him out of that comfort zone all the time.
Yeah.
But that's what he kind of loves about her, and she knows when to push his buttons and when to not, give him space and stuff. And again, I love when they're like putting their own sections of the house together, and they're like, "Oh, I sprayed my M&M silver. Right, don't eat any of those; they're toxic." and then Andy's got silver paint in his mouth, and he's like, "Yeah, don't eat those, guys." And they're like, "Go and throw up right now. Go and throw up." And some great and like Aziz comes in, and he's like, "I just bought fudge. Yeah, I didn't make anything." Okay, great. Well done.
Sweet and tasty, just like me.
Yeah, he was like, oh, because I think he's trying to make himself, and he starts talking. He's like, I don't know if that's racist. If I make myself out of this particular chocolate or this one, and it's like brilliant. And yeah, just great. I love that Aubrey Plaza gets a photo, an art print of the killing the black-eyed peas, and all these. Yeah, and again, they're very on. Like each of the gifts are wonderful, and again, it goes to show again, like there's a lot of these kind of stories again, like Christmas Carol. It's like the difference one person is making. It's a Wonderful Life. Is a very much again. It's the difference one person can make to a community or a group of people, and that it kind of it's very much in that kind of vein of those kind of Christmas stories. And it's wonderful. And again, the gift they get to her at the end, give up their own time and effort and energy to help her achieve her dreams. Which
they're going to run
her
campaign for her, aren't they? Yeah,
exactly, because she's getting really shit numbers, and they abandon
1%.
her. 1%, 1% of 1,000%, 100%. Just wonderful, really, really cool episode. And again, like you said, balances the pathos with the humor. The whole PCP thing was having me rolling, and they're like, we're calling it PCP, and it's like every time everything's better with PCP, or you always feel great about PCP, and they're like, yeah, we don't know, maybe we should come up with another name. And I love that there's one woman who keeps saying stuff, and she's like. I don't want to hear from you. It's a terrible idea. Shut up. All the gags. Again, I think it does have a little bit more DNA for Arrested Development than anything else for me. But again, that's not bad DNA to steal from. If you're going to clone yourself from anything, those two shows. And again, I'm sure Brooklyn Nine probably was influenced by this, probably more so than the other way around. But yeah,
and then one of the guys went off to do Good Place as well, which is definitely has that kind of has that feel of Parks and Rec.
That's a show I need to get back on as well. I don't think I even finished BoJack Horseman either, which could have come into my holiday specials. Again, not because of anything to do with quality. I get bored and then I just forget about it and don't return to it, unfortunately. But yeah, this whole podcast has made me rethink and make me want to go back and rewatch or revisit or finish off certain shows. So yeah, that's good. If this podcast has done anything, it's again emboldened my Christmas spirit and also makes me want to watch a bit.
Leslie
more
Knope has changed your future. There you go.
Oh yes, the Ghost of Christmas Future, or the Final Fate from Xena. Yeah, brilliant, wonderful choice. So I'm going to talk about one of my favorite shows. I've watched multiple times. Community. Now, a lot of people talk about how much they love Big Bang Theory, but for me, my friend described it pretty well when he said Community is a show written by geeks for geeks, and Big Bang Theory is studio executives writing a show for geeks and thinking. And again, I've got no, if you like that show, fair enough. It's not my bag for me. Like I get, I can appreciate the references and stuff like that, but it's just a little, I don't know. It's a bit full on for me. Yeah, that as well. It's like, you should like this. You're a nerd. Nerds like comics, and nerds like, geeks like maths and fucking this. And yeah, it never really, it was not coming from a genuine place or a real place. And, some really beautiful episodes of Community. There's one I remember about Dungeons and Dragons, which I think kind of ignited a bit of love for Dungeons and Dragons again in outside of maybe the Dungeon and Dragon community. And they even banned it, and I think it's a stupid reason for banning it, because somebody is dressed as a dark elf, and they joke about that being a race crime or hate crime within the episode, but then people are like, well, we've got to ban this episode because it is a hate crime, and you're like, no. And even the black people in the episode are going, no, what are you doing? He's a dark elf. There's a difference between a black person and a dark elf. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing, but that deals with like suicide, that episode, and again balances the humor and the fun and the imagination, and they go on some really weird and wacky colorful adventures, this group of people, and again it's a show full of such a diverse kind of group of people. You've got Jehovah's Witnesses, you've got Muslims, people who are, feminists, radical. You've got Christian women, Christian mothers, people who are, kind of cynical former lawyers, all sorts, you name it, nerds, whatever. And even baby boomers as well, including a problematic actor, which we probably won't talk about too much. But I love this show on every level. Even in the later episodes where certain people have to be replaced or they bring in new actors, it still really works for me. And again, all of these people would go on and do amazing things, much like Parks and Rec and stuff. So I love this. And I think the obvious choice for this for Christmas episodes would be the one where they're animated and they're doing the kind of Rankin Bass thing, where it's a claymation or stop motion animated thing. But I didn't want to do that.
That's the season before, isn't it? I think season 2.
Yeah, I think it might be the season before or the season after, maybe. I feel like it might be a bit later because it costs a bit more to animate, and but it's still a great episode. Don't get me wrong, go and check it out. It's amazing. I think it's Arbed's special, Christmas special or something. But this is again Arbed, a character on the spectrum, is the focus and the lead character in this episode, and it's all about Glee Club. And this at the time is a parody and pastiche of a very popular show called Glee. I recently went to see Wicked. I'm not a massive fan of musicals in general, but I did very much enjoy Wicked because it has a very good story, I think. And that for me is crucial. And Glee, I'm sure, had its own problems and its own issues. And, unfortunately, some of those actors are no longer with us. And again, I'm not poo-pooing your love of Glee. If you like Glee, go and enjoy it. But for me, it's not my bag. And this absolutely takes the piss out of it. Absolutely, on every element. It kind of references people and things that are, directly referenced to this. And the people who are making the show have made no qualms about, not liking it. And again, another friend who's been on the podcast says, when we talked about Walk Hard, Nathan, we talked about the beauty of a good comedy song, the beauty of the writing, and it still has to be a good quality song. And this episode is full of them. So the idea is Arbed's a bit kind of upset that all of his friends are going their separate ways for Christmas. And he wants to watch a terrible holiday special, and it's very much influenced by the Star Wars holiday special, of course. And you get a little reference at the end for it, but it's also referencing a Doctor Who special type thing as well. And there is Jeff is not a fan of the Glee Club. They come in and they're going to promote their Christmas pageant, and he hits them with a restraining order from the music copyright group, which is actually something that happened to Glee as well. I think they referenced Kings of Leon, and I think apparently Kings of Leon did not like them using it, or was like, you didn't ask us, or something like that, or they refused it. And I think it's Ryan Murphy who did that show made comments about them. And there's a reference later in the show to it. Taran Killam comes in as a guest spot character. He's one of my favorite SNL cast members. He's married to Maria Hill from all the Marvel stuff and How I Met Your Mother. Again, blanking on the actor's name. I can't remember her name. No, it's gone. But she's great. She's fantastic. And he's wonderful as well as this very over-the-top. And again, it's almost like he's playing the main teacher in Glee. Like he's doing a parody and pastiche.
The knitted jumper and everything.
Yeah, it's all there, man. It's all there. They know what they're doing, and they are having a blast. And the idea is that now they don't have a Glee Club, I think it was a away gag in the previous season, they'd replaced the Glee Club in one session because there was a bus crash and it killed the entire Glee Club. So they had to take their place. And at this point, now that they've all had the current Glee Club have had a meltdown. Basically, they're all in hospital for a nervous breakdown. They need to replace them again, and they all refuse. And Arbed thinks that he can bring everyone together and they can enjoy Christmas together or the holidays together in, one big group, as opposed to going their separate ways. And they start slowly but surely infecting the group like a viral disease, or and they even make a body snatchers gag as well within the show. But it's great. Lots of funny songs and funny gags in it. You've got Baby Boomer Santa, which gets Chevy Chase's character involved because he's like, they're kind of going into their weaknesses and grabbing them and getting them involved. And you've got, Teach Me About Christmas from Annie, who's Jewish, and she's doing the sexy born sexy yesterday trope. And she's like to the nth degree where she's just absolutely stupid, not sexy anymore. There's a joke. Absolutely not. That Jehovah's Witnesses rap, I think, is my favourite song in it. And again, Childish Gambino, Donald Glover himself, absolutely going to go, you can see where he's going in regards to his music talent and acting talent. But yeah, just fun, silly, kind of referential, satirical elements. And again, like Britta being the worst is actually like a plot point in this. And like that's like a running gag throughout the show that she's like the worst at everything. And they love her, but she just kind of ruins everything. And you Britted it, like pulled a Monica kind of gag where like, you've Britted it, you've ruined it. The Dean, I think, unfortunately we don't get a lot of the Dean in this, but usually comes in an absolutely wacky outfit and makes some sort of gag about being the Dean. Just again, he's an Oscar-winning writer. I think he did The Lovely Bones or something like that. I think he won an Oscar for. But he's in this wonderful little show. Again, Shelley is convinced because nobody talks about Jesus at Christmas, and these choir kids come in, and she's like, "Yes, we've got to speak about Jesus. Let us talk about Jesus at Christmas." She's like, kind of there's that War of Christmas kind of allegory in there as well, a little bit. But yeah, I love it. And again, it's the characters being themselves and again doing these wonderful songs, wonderful renditions, and again kind of taking the piss out of, having fun with another show and poking fun at something, and the reverential humor and the irreverency that they have. Yeah, I absolutely adore this show, and this is just a really strong, fun, again, a lot of silly fun to be had in this, much like some of my other choices as well.
No, I completely agree. It's a great choice. Perhaps a surprising one from you. Pretty mainstream.
Okay.
I started watching The Tick with Emma in the room, and she sort of stopped what she was doing, looked at me, and was like, "What the fuck are you watching?" And I was like,
"That's what I want. That's what I want. I want everybody's part
exactly. Yeah.
to stop in the middle of what they're doing, and just say, so what the fuck are you watching?" And usually it's when there's breasts on the screen. Usually, I know Dan Burgess has that issue when we did Caligula and other things, and it's like, "Oh, I see, you're watching porn. I see." But yes,
that was
it is one of those.
Reaction. Community. She didn't catch me watching Community. Not that there's anything to catch, but she has watched all of Community and thoroughly enjoys it too. So that's the only reason I make that comment. Surprisingly mainstream for you.
I actually don't think it's as mainstream as some people would think. I think there's still a lot
just
of people.
For you.
Yeah, for me it's mainstream, sure, but but I think in general it's not maybe one of the most mainstream comedy shows you've seen.
Probably true.
Now, Big Bang Theory is very mainstream, I think, but not anywhere near as good or as poignant or has as much pathos as this show could have at any given point.
Yeah, I agree. And you said it. Look at what Donald Glover went on to do, what Alison Brie's gone on to do. They're probably the biggest names from this, but Gillian Jacobs has gone to big success. That plays Britta as well. Everyone's gone on an interesting path. A lot of them have cropped up in the MCU, of course, because the Russos are one of the driving forces behind Community. Correct. And I think maybe even done this episode. So
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, you get Danny Pudi in Winter Soldier, don't you? Shirley turns up in Endgame.
I think so. Yeah, I think that
when
they time travel back to the 40s, she's in the elevator, I think.
Yeah.
Looking at him and makes a comment. And then the Dean is also in Civil War, I think.
Right.
during that presentation where he's using the Mysterio's bath technology. He's in the back there and going, "Oh, Tony, I've got this idea for, self-cooking hot dogs," or something he says. I can't remember what it was, but yeah. And again, like, look at the team that did this show and look what they went up behind the scenes, let alone in front of the camera. Behind the scenes, they created, this tiny show, tiny kind of idea, playing around with, the paintball episodes are some of the best. When they parody something, it is the best parody you've seen of that, the best pastiche. So, and again, that's what comes here, like when they're doing the Western or when they're doing the zombie episode and stuff like that, it's like spaced almost, like when they do that.
I was just going to say, like you referenced kind of the things that have influenced it. I think spaced is a good reference point here. Absolutely. It's got self-awareness about its references. It's kind of, I don't know if there's a word for this. It's referential, but it's also reverential. Like it really loves the things that it's referencing, unless it wants to rip the piss out of the things it's referencing, which is in this episode. But the D&D stuff is not ripping the piss out of D&D.
No, it loves D&D and appreciates and respects it. I think The Simpsons treads that line pretty well between respectful and still poking fun, especially when it comes to like religious episodes or episodes about religion. I think the Simpsons treads that line just as well as any show has ever, I think, to the point where it's respectful, yet it can still poke fun at it and not be overtly offensive to people of that faith, I think. Yeah,
really strong pick. And I think, if people haven't watched Community, if it is a bit of a sleeper, as you were suggesting, it's definitely one that people should put on their list. Great bunch of characters to spend time with. Another one with great running jokes. The chemistry between Danny Pudi and Donald Glover is wonderful, the kind of bromance they have. And again, it decides at certain points to switch gears and switch focus, and it does it very cleverly. It's very much a Joel McHale show when it starts. And then it realizes, oh shit, we are not using all of these people. Chevy Chase, I know we're not going to talk about him much, but he gets a lot of airtime to begin with. Then they start realizing how strong these other cast members are, and it manages to switch gear. And like the two people that have gone on to be the biggest success start to get more and more airtime as the show goes on, because their talent was clearly burgeoning.
I think it's almost a bit like a Scrubs as well. I think as it starts quite in a fairly real place and fairly like realistic place.
Yeah.
But they start to have more and more fun, and it becomes more kind of cartoony and wacky, and they start playing around a bit more, I think, as they go on. And I think it does improve it. Where I think maybe Friends, I think for me started off really strong at the start when it was quite grounded. And then when it becomes to the end and everyone's just a pantomime character, that's where it kind of started to lose it for me a bit. When everyone is just the stereotype they're playing, instead of at the beginning where they were three-dimensional and it wasn't just, Joey's stupid, Monica's a control freak, Phoebe's weird, Ross is insane, like it did get to a point where, again, it still has those moments, but it did get to a point where I was just like, I miss those early ones where it was like there was,
fair.
And even those early Simpsons ones were like surprisingly like serious. A lot of those like really grounded kind of episodes, which we'll get to in the comments a little later. But Community. If you've not gotten it, listen to this and listen to these wonderful new Christmas carols you've never heard. Okay, what's the next for you, Jack?
Okay, so I did have to check with you whether it needed to be vetoed, because this is very loosely Christmassy, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think it's probably the least Christmassy, but it's alternativity stories. It
is, and it has
holiday stories.
One scene set on Christmas Eve. So
we did to live and die in LA, which is probably the least Christmassy thing I've ever done in my life. I will allow this. I will not veto this.
So speaking of bawling your eyes out at the end of an episode, my favourite Christmas sort of episode of TV ever is season 4, episode 5 of Lost, called The Constant. Now, anybody that's watched Lost will not be surprised to see this at the top of anybody's list. It widely gets considered one of the best episodes of TV of all time. But I understand, as you explained to me, it's really difficult to know what the fuck's going on if you've not watched Lost before. However, there's joy in that too. I don't know if this is the right phrase, but I am an apologist for Lost, if that needs to be said. I think Lost is an amazing show. Again, it's not perfect. It fell foul of being a network show, so it had to fill time at points, and then it kind of rushed to the end. It's not perfect, but when it was great, it was great. And watching it live week by week is an experience that I will keep with me forever. The community that grew up, to use that word from the last show, that grew around watching the show and talking online about the theories and the characters and predictions and the references in terms of like character names and what that might mean, and like game theory and are they in purgatory and all that shit that went on for 6 seasons was wonderful. It was so good. It was almost better than watching the show itself. So Lost will always have a special place in my heart because of that. I spent more time online after each episode reading about it than I did watching each episode. And that was beautiful. It was so good. And like reading experts and theories and delving and what does this mean? And yeah, it was so good. Another show with an amazing ensemble cast, obviously clearly built from the start here. There is kind of a central character in Jack, but a big ensemble cast. By the time we get to season 4, they now know what their end game is, and they are full tilt going for it. And it started off as a kind of mystery show full of flashbacks, as we all know. And then it started just dropping in little kind of sprinkles of monsters and a little bit of sci-fi here. And then by the time we get to season 4, it's like, yeah, we're a sci-fi show and we have been all along, by the way. And next season, it's going to be all about time travel. So fucking strap yourself in because it's here we go. And it kind of starts here. And this episode is all based around my favorite character on Lost called Desmond. He's not introduced till season 2 and he's discovered in the hatch. And that was a big part of season 1 was what is this hatch and what's down there? And then when we discover it's a guy, it becomes very intrinsic to the show. It's linked to how they came to the island in the first place. Through some of the time that Desmond spent on the island and through some of the events that have happened to him, he's become kind of magnetized, is the best way I can put it, really. So in this episode, when he and Saeed, another main character, travel off the island to a freighter just off the island, which is not Penny's boat, a reference which doesn't mean much to you, Dan, I'm afraid, but to the Losties out there is a very significant moment in the history of the show. We are on the edge of our seats. Like we are really scared for our characters and what's going to happen now. These two are going off the island. They're brave because they're going to go and try and find out if they can get everyone rescued. But this magnetism that's happened to Desmond means his consciousness is now jumping through time. He's going back to a very specific point in his past. But what's happened is that consciousness has taken over present day. So present day Desmond doesn't know about the island, and he's starting to get unstuck in time, I suppose is the best way you can put it. And he has to find a constant in both time periods that will ground him, is the best way I can put it. Plus, it's a complicated shape, but it's beautiful because it is. And his constant is the woman that he's been in love with his whole life called Penny. The trouble is, in the time period he's jumped back to, him and Penny have broken up. He has joined the army. And a lot of it comes out later that it's basically her dad that's forced this to happen. He's a rich white guy. He's Jim Robinson from Neighbours. But he's playing American here. He had this weird transition where he left Neighbours and suddenly he was playing arsehole military rich white guys for a long period in American TV shows. So he's forced Desmond away basically and forced them apart. And he doesn't know this. Desmond's kept it from her. So he's trying to track her down and trying to get her to agree to speak to him in the past whilst losing his mind in the present. It's a really focused episode. It's basically just on Desmond and a few kind of characters around him. The kind of wider island issues don't really matter in this episode because we're spending so much time here. But it's going to become really pivotal as we move on. And actually, like I say, time travel becomes a really big deal. In season 5, characters actually literally get dispersed through time. Some are in the past, some are in the present, but also in different time periods, and it's cool. It's my favorite season of the show because it's sci-fi and it's time travel. But talking of, pathos and talking of emotion, I mean, you said yourself, as somebody who hasn't got a clue what's going on, who any of these people are, what they mean to each other, it still managed to get you at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is amazing that you come to care about just Desmond in one episode and you want him to succeed in his mission. He meets Faraday in the past because he's speaking to Faraday on the island in the present, who is another one of my favorite characters. He's only just joined the show and he goes on to be so pivotal and so cool, played by Jeremy Davis, who's also in another show that I love called Justified. And he always makes an impact no matter how much screen time he has. So he's talking to him in the past and the present as well, and he's helping him ground himself essentially. And by the end, he's managed to get Penny's number in the past, got her to agree very reluctantly to keep that number because in 7 years' time, I think he says, I can't remember if that's the exact that number of years.
7 or 8, I think. Yeah, 7 or 8 years, I think he said.
He's like, I promise I will not contact you for this amount of time. I will abide by your wishes. You don't want to see me anymore. I understand. I'm going to go off and live my life and let you live yours. But I need to talk to you on Christmas Eve on this day in 2004, which is when the show's mostly set. And she thinks he's crazy, obviously. But there's something in her that clearly wants to believe in him because she does keep that number. Because then when we're back in the present, Saeed's managed to fix the radio, which has been broken on the boat. Another mystery to be solved in a later episode, folks. So Desmond can call Penny in the present and he gets through to her. And it turns out she's been searching him for 2 years. He's been missing, presumed dead, for years since the shipwreck. He's been on this island. And the conversation these two have is beautiful. The amount of love that they managed to share across this phone line that these two characters managed to portray. They're not in the same room with each other. They've never acted together. Well, they have in flashbacks, but in terms of like kind of the show, that they're not in the scene together like that. It's so wonderful. And my God, I said I wept at Parks. Lost even more. I mean, knowing where it's going to go as well, as somebody who's watched the show several times, knowing that there's not always happy endings for all these characters and all these relationships. But yeah, the way that this episode pays off, the way that you care about Desmond, even as a lay Lost watcher, the way that the characters, Penny and Desmond, portray this kind of love for each other, it makes me think of Last of the Mohicans. Daniel Day-Lewis, I will find you, when Madeline Stowe's character's been taken and he's like, I will, no matter what, I'll come and find you. This is kind of essentially Penny's on the end of a phone saying like, I've been looking for you for 2 years. I will never stop. I'm going to find you. Like, it's amazing to hear your voice. And the wave of emotion that Desmond feels at hearing this after so long and holding on to his love for Penny for so long and then being forced apart in this kind of, Shakespearean evil, megalomaniacal father getting in the way idea is brilliant. It's such a good episode of TV, and I think I'll say it one more time, the fact that it won you over in 50 odd minutes and got you to connect emotionally to these characters, I think speaks volumes. When it was a complicated show at a complicated moment in its history, asking you complicated ideas about time travel and what does the constant mean and what is this island and why is it magical and what's the mystery and why when they've flown from the island an hour to a boat, has it been more than a day on the island? And it's asking all these difficult concepts that you're watching, but you were still caught up in the human angle. And I think that was the beauty of Lost, is that through all the supernatural and the time travel and the mystery, it was always the people at the center that mattered. There's the two famous sayings from Lost: whatever happened. That idea of like time doesn't matter if you go back in time. You can't kill Hitler as a baby. Well, it's already happened anyway. But also, it's about the journey, not where you finish. Was another thing said about Lost. I'm probably paraphrasing that really badly, but the point of Lost was a journey these characters go on together, not where they end up.
Not the destination.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't mean the island. I mean where the show finishes, or anyway.
Where you end up at the end of the show as well as an audience member.
Absolutely, yeah. It was about going on this journey with them, and this being the pivotal moment of their lives. Some of them the end of their lives, some of them not. That kind of comes through in this episode. Again, I guess I'm coming back to that same idea. You could watch this as a standalone and know everything about Lost that you need to know.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I went in completely blind, absolutely blind. I didn't look up anything. I didn't get any background. And it starts in, they're just like four guys in a helicopter, 3 guys in a helicopter. And I'm like, I don't know what in a storm, just saying, just looking at a bit of fucking paper and going, I'm just going to follow these coordinates. They're like, you don't know where it is? You don't know where your ship is? He's like, yeah, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. And then Desmond starts having just having these headaches. And then he wakes up and he's like, who are you? I don't know what's going on. It's his mental state from the past, and then you're like, what the fuck? And then they land on the ship, and there's a guy having the same problem. The guy Tonya used to fancy in her youth, Fisher Stevens. Fisher Stevens. and we learn as well, like there's real stakes to this, because we learn that him going back and forth in time mentally, because it's his consciousness that's going back and forth. It's not his body. It's not, it's not a Terminator thing or a Back to the Future thing. It's his kind of like Days of Futures Past kind of thing. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's another thing I could compare it to where it's more like your mind is traveling. I guess, there's I'm sure there's some other show I can't remember, but that's the main one I come back to because it's X-Men, of course.
Well, Quantum Leap is that as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he's not actually. Yeah, that is. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, he's not actually.
His body stays in the present.
Yeah, but he's in somebody else's body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen some early stuff because people talked about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of up my alley. It sounds a bit comic booky, polar bears and shadow monsters, and people don't really know why they're here, and there's and some good actors in there that I like as well. So I was like, oh, yeah,
superpowers.
Yes, that as well. Yeah, so I was like, okay. So I'd seen some. I remember Desmond. I remember the Hatch. So I remember he had some importance. I'd definitely never seen this episode. But yeah, I remember certain bits. I remember at uni, Nathan and Scott, who've had on the podcast before, Scott was a big fan. He loved the show. And I remember them all watch the finale. I didn't bother watching it because there's no point. I'm like, and I had a history of watching the first episode of something and the last episode of something, and then try to fill in the blanks in between. That was kind of became a running gag. They were like, let's show you the first one, and now I've just finished the show. Do you want to watch the last one? I was like, yeah. But this one I was kind of like, nah, it's fine. It's because it's already known for being confusing and people complained about the writing. I remember Nathan was like, one of his least favorite bits is we've got to go back to the island. We've got to go back. Everyone's escaped the island and they all have to travel back for some reason, some contrived reason. Again, I don't know, but he wasn't particularly happy with the direction of the show at that time. I remember Scott, much like when he went to see Crystal Skull, I was like, how was it? And he was like, yeah, it was all right. And like a week later, he'd be like, it was fucking shit. They bamboozled me. And the same with the Lost Sonali. He was like, yeah, it's fine, and then later he's like, oh, fucking bullshit. So yeah, I can kind of understand. But yeah, I have to say, even though, again, like you're saying, some very complicated sciencey stuff going on, there's keep cutting back to characters and again not really knowing the context, and again it's not a show that likes to previously on Lost or anything like that.
No.
It really does not fucking do that. It just expects you to know what the fuck is going on, which is good in a way. I can appreciate shows doing that, but also I can also appreciate them kind of filling us in a little bit here and there. I'm a previously on X-Men, that's my go-to. That's when I ever think about that, I think of that, and and it adds a little bit of context to that specific episode. So I'm a fan of that.
I think by this point they're expecting that you've watched 4 seasons and you've read, like I was doing, every week and had your own theories.
How dare they? How dare they expect me to watch everything? No, but again, like you said, it grabbed me, it had me. I liked Graham McTavish is in there and Kevin Durand is in there, some great actors, just as very small bit roles. Fisher Stevens as well. So yeah, it was brilliant. You've got the Lawnmower Man's in there as well. As the pilot. Yeah, so just some great acting all around, and again, like they really do ground the kind of weird and wackiness of it in a realistic and believable way that you can buy into. And again, him going back and forth and learning all this stuff, and then him trying to remember the phone number and stuff. You're like, I'm kind of like, oh no, he's gonna forget the phone number. No, don't forget the phone number. And he's writing shit on his hand, and they're like, do you not want to write down the phone number? He's like, it's not going to matter. It's not going to make any difference. And then again, that second, they make contact, the kind of two timelines kind of intersect, and you see both of them occurring at the same time. And again, she's been calling him, which I thought was cool. Like, it wasn't actually because he's like, I'm going to call you, but she actually was like, I've not heard from him. I must find him. I've got to find him. And I thought that was really good because, again, the way they leave it, it's very like, you're a crazy man. I don't know what you're saying. Get away from me. You're a weirdo. But then all this time has passed and, he's gone missing. And yeah, it was beautiful. But again, without the context of the rest of the show, I didn't need it, to be honest. They explain the time travel elements. They explain what it's about. They get the stakes there of him dying because Fisher Stevens is having the same problem and dies. And the pressure is on. And again, like Saeed's there supporting him and, the other characters, while all these kind of armed guards are there and they're kind of shady and you kind of don't know what they're about. But again, that adds to the tension and again, they've destroyed all the communication equipment, and she has been in contact with the ship. She has been calling, trying to find him. And again, you get the wonderful moment where they do eventually. And again, you can see it in both the actors' faces, like you said, not even on the same set, not the same day, separate recordings, but that it's that connection in that episode, which absolutely, and you know, the again making amends again, you know, another theme through your episodes, and finding each other, and again, you know, again it is very brief, the Christmas day, but I think there's a reason.
There's a Christmas tree in the background, so it's fine.
It counts. For me it counts. I don't know for Andy. I know he's quite critical on those things. Not really a Christmas film. It's an alternative Christmas film. It's an alternative Christmas holiday special. But yeah, I accept it, and I think
even in the present, to be fair, Saeed sees a calendar and he's like, "Oh wow, it's nearly Christmas."
Yeah, he does.
We've been here for that long. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, like you're saying, time's funny, and you know, the experience thing, and when they go off course, that's when the problems start happening. And yeah, just really, really good. But yeah, there's a reason. There's a thematic reason that is set on Christmas. You know, it's not an accident. There's a reason for it. But yeah, absolutely excellent choice. I think probably the one I enjoyed most out of all the ones you picked, I think.
Good thing it's number one then.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of heart-wrenching episodes, we are going to talk about my final one. Again, I'm going for another cartoon. This one snuck up on me as well. This was a show I quite liked. And again, it was a show about being your average kid. I was a big Nickelodeon fan. I like Cartoon Network. I like Fox Kids. I liked all the cartoon stuff. But this was a show that I really kind of got on board with. There's a fun cast of characters, very wacky, but there's also a grounded nature to it, like this is what real kids really sound like and were. And the show is Hey Arnold, and it's season 1, episode 11, Arnold's Christmas. I'm not sure if I mentioned the Community episode. That was Community season 3, episode 10, Regional Holiday Christmas. If I hadn't, because they're always talking about regionals. What are regionals? But yeah, going back to Hey Arnold, it's a show I quite liked. One of my nicknames at school was Hey Arnold because people thought I had a weird shaped head. So I could hate this show. I could despise this show because of it.
You haven't got a head shaped the same as Hey Arnold.
I know, but they thought I had a weird shaped head, and they were like, any character with a weird shaped head, like alien head, triangle head, and then whatever. Like Z from Ants was one. It was Zurg from from Toy Story was one. Don't ask me why. There's no sense or rhyme and reason of it, but they just tended to focus on the shape of my skull for whatever.
Well, I will say, back through the past, hey, arseholes, this guy's no Arnold.
Jack, you're not my constant, but if you were there, you would be. You'd travel back and you go, fuck you guys. You could beat up some kids. You're a bit older than me at that time. You could definitely, deck them. I don't know how the school authorities would agree with that, but I'm sure you'd explain it and you'd be like, you don't understand. Dan needs it for his mental health in the future. He doesn't need these horrible nicknames. We've got to save him. We've got to stop it from happening. But yes, no, I'd appreciate that. I appreciate you. But yes, so we're talking about this, and it's basically it's in the apartment. Again, it's full of weird and wacky characters, lots of fun gags, and again, there is a lot of pathos in this episode as well, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's there's an apartment block, and again, they're not made of money. All these people, they live together, and they do a secret Santa. So there's all these different people. Some live alone, some are in couples, but all from different kind of walks of life, different religions, races, you name it. And Arnold pulls the secret Santa out of the hat, and he gets a man called Mr. Win. So Mr. Win is a Vietnamese immigrant. He's a bit kind of a loner, and he's kind of a little eccentric, and nobody really knows him very well, really deeply, just because he's kind of, a bit unusual, and I don't think he has a lot of time for people. And he says, I want to get him something special. I want to find him something special. His friend Gerald is walking around and he's buying ties and socks for everybody, even though it doesn't fit. He's just like, I'll get you a tie. And he's like, she's a little girl. That's your little sister. You can't have that. And Arnold thinks he can give Mr. Win something special, something unique, and really cheer him up, because again, he's this seemingly sad loner gentleman who lives alone, and he tries to get to know him, and it's a little awkward and stuff, but eventually he reveals that he had a daughter, and during the Vietnam War he gave up his daughter to an American soldier, a US pilot, and they took her to safety because he was unable to go with her, so he said, please take my daughter, in a very kind of, considering the type of show it was quite realistic and portrayed in a quite a bleak manner. Like, he talks about not being able to feed her or provide the things she needs. So he actively gives up his daughter to the soldier so she can live a better life in America. He shouts the name of the city. I can't remember which city they live in or if they ever name it. But he remembers the city, and years later, when he has the money and the opportunity, he moves to America to find her, and still, while being in this city, still has not found her. So Arnold takes it upon himself to commit to making this Christmas miracle happen, and he goes to the government records and asks this guy, who's the only person still working there, to see if he can find his daughter, Mai, she's called, before Christmas, to give him that Christmas miracle. And he basically refuses, an angry, cranky guy, but they agree to do his Christmas shopping because he's doing it late. And they find everything, they manage to get it in time, he gives them the money. They get back, but they're missing these shoes, these very rare Nancy Subamoni sports winter boots. Now, there's a character in the show
very
called...
Very catchy theme that goes with the advertising for these boots.
And
it's up there
Helga,
with Halloween 3.
Helga Pataki, the kind of almost antagonist, but also love interest for Arnold. She secretly loves him, but every time she talks to him, she can't help but be mean to him, which is kind of, the old classic, I don't know, problematic way that kids would interact with the other sex, I think, back in the day. Not so much now, I hope. But yeah, and one, she finds out about this because she's trying to find a good gift for Arnold to kind of confess her love. And she finds this list and knows that he's looking for these things. And she wants these boots, like she's looking for them, and they're all sold out. But she gets an early Christmas present from her mum and dad, and it is those boots. And these are the boots. She finds the reason why Arnold is looking for these boots. It's not for selfish reasons or to have them himself. It is to get the guy at the government records, get the records for Mai, and to hopefully reunite Mr. Wynn with his daughter. So Helga has this, she even goes, "No, a moral quandary," she kind of screams, is like, "No, not again," and decides to give the boots to the government records guy right at the last minute before Christmas, and says, if you don't do this, I've given you the boots. He's like, "It's too late, we're closed, I'm not doing it, it's Christmas Eve." And she goes, this young boy will not believe in Christmas miracles. He'll lose all hope that the world is a good, kind, and fair place if you don't do that. And he kind of sighs and shrugs. And then, of course, spoilers to the end of the show, Mai turns up at the door Christmas Day and reunites with her father in a very touching moment. And Arnold and Gerald saying, "Look, Christmas miracles do happen." And Helga is out there kind of dancing and is really happy that she gave that joy to not only Arnold, but to Mr. Wynn as well. And it's a beautiful little episode, very powerful, very touching, and kind of very much out of left field for the show, but also kind of in tune with it as well, which is very unusual. I don't know if you were... I imagine you were probably a bit too old to be watching Hey Arnold, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Whether I've seen some of it, I don't know, but I think I'd aged out. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think... we spoke about animation styles before. This one is deliberately a bit more kind of crude, a bit more sketchy. But I think the arc of the episode is really mature, is really grown up, is not kids' TV at all. We spoke about The Tick, about how that's kind of not for kids, and it's not really. But this is definitely for kids, and it definitely has a message. And with all of yours, really, other than The Tick, I suppose, I was saying, you always kind of had this miracle element to them, I suppose, this sense of a magical thing can happen if you believe in it enough. And you were saying with mine, perhaps it's that kind of idea of amends and making up for past mistakes. Interesting that we both kind of got a trend through our episodes. So, yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel familiar when I watched it, I would say. I could see there being a lot of value in it being a show that could get revived or put on a streaming service. Or I think, if this is an example of the kind of content that it is capable of achieving, I think I can see why when you were younger, you really loved it. Because I think, it's kind of a freaks and geeks style show. And you know how I mean that. I don't mean that in any derogatory in the way that the Judd Apatow show meant it as well, as in we revel in being the kind of the misfits, the outcasts. And I think it's that kind of show. So I can see why it would have attracted a lot of people to watch it because of the characters being portrayed in it, but also has a good level of humor, and it's clearly written by very smart people.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of humor, and the cast is really diverse. The designs for each character are totally unique. You know, you've got people that kind of, you know, look like a snake. You've got, you know, characters with kind of huge kind of like kid and play afros and stuff, and again, characters from all walks of life. Like how often do you get like a Vietnamese character in something, or I think Oscar's Polish, I want to say, I believe, or of kind of the Eastern European persuasion, you know, and you know, how often do you get a Vietnam story not from, you know, the white Western, you know, perspective? Like, how often do you see that? And, you know, that's wild for that it's on a kid's show, you know, and it deals with, again, like the scenes they're showing could easily be from a documentary or, you know, any of those kind of Vietnam movies. And again, it doesn't go into kind of the blood and the gore and stuff, but it shows you the fucking civil unrest. Like, it does not like sugarcoat this topic. It does not, you know, I hate shows that kind of patronize and like talk down to kids. Like, you know, I've never been a fan of that. Kids are far more intelligent and emotionally intelligent that most people give them credit for, and are stronger and can deal with these darker themes and ideas. You know, and I think a lot of modern kind of cartoons and stuff miss that. They miss the kind of peril, if it's not genuine peril, how do we revel in that victory? Again, like the bleakness, you know, and the sentimentality, you need that balance for it to work for me in equal measure, and I think this particular episode balances it perfectly. And yeah, I may not have ranked them, but I think this one probably is my number one. I think if I had to really kind of throw, and again, I think it's because it's so out of left field. And again, this one almost had me going as well. I was like, fuck, like, you know, and again, it's kind of predictable and you kind of know it's going to happen, but still, it's that, again, that realism and that grounded nature, again, allows me to believe in the miracle and to appreciate the miracle for what it is, I think.
As you said earlier, when you talk about Curb, you know, there's nothing wrong with predictability if you're building an audience up to a moment and that moment pays off. And I think this absolutely does in this episode, yeah.
Right, well, those are our top 5 Christmas TV holiday specials. What a list. What a list. But we're not finished. We've got some honourable mentions, and we have some listener comments. So let's go with your honourable mentions first, Jack. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, sure. An episode of TV that is absolutely stunning, but is not Christmassy in the same way we've been talking about it, is The Bear Season 2, Episode 6, Fishes. It is so good. The acting is so good. Oh, let's just bring Jamie Lee Curtis in. Okay, let's do that. But it is, Jesus, it's a heavy, hard watch. But it's an amazing episode of TV. Thank you for giving me a link. I was desperate to watch an episode of Quantum Leap, which was my favourite show when I was a kid. I was absolutely obsessed with Quantum Leap. So yeah, Season 3, Episode 10, A Little Miracle, which is another Christmas Carol riff with Sam leaping into the body of a kind of assistant to a rich, I can't even think what his job would be, like
entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess
he's Scrooge, isn't he? He's like a businessman, corrupt businessman.
He takes on businesses and then sells them on, but basically everyone gets sacked in that process, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was good. I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed the hologram being seen and heard as well. Like, yeah, I thought that was a clever little device that they had a lot of fun with as well. Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, I really want to rewatch Quantum Leap. I'm scared of how well it holds up because, you know,
yeah, there are some
the white savior trope is obviously throughout Quantum Leap.
Yeah,
before that was kind of a problem, but he teaches Michael Jackson how to moonwalk. I don't know how I feel about that now, but that definitely happens in an episode.
Yeah. My flatmate, he made me watch the one with the evil leaper, the female evil leaper, where he goes into the body of a guy who was previously in, who has Down syndrome, I believe. Yeah. And the storyline gets really fucked up immediately because the evil leaper is inside a body of somebody else, and they make it out that the kid that Sam's in with Down syndrome has attempted to rape her. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, that's... I didn't know even how to react to that. I was like, that's it was a hard watch, but it was kind of, I was just kind of blown. My mind was blown, like that this kind of almost made it onto television in a way. Like, again, it's not, you know, it's not offensive, I don't think, the way it's handled, but it was very shocking. The way that episode, came out, when usually it's like oh boy, that's when you get something like that. And again, that's like what we're saying, like you have the fun episodes and then you get to a really serious one and you think, oh Jesus Christ, it comes out left field. But brilliant show, one of my favorites as well.
Maybe
again, during that slot you were talking about earlier, definitely during that slot, that amazing little slot.
It's on the season's greetings list for Tony, so maybe one day.
Ooh, yeah. I'll come on for that. I'd definitely come on for that one.
Love that.
If you need somebody else, yeah, absolutely.
I thought Hawkeye was really underrated, and I think
I agree.
Best episode of that was episode 3 when they introduce Echo, well, she's not known as Echo at this point, when she's Maya, but you get a really cool chase scene in that with the trick arrows and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really cool episode. I love Veronica Mars, another very Buffy influenced show. So season 1, episode 10 of that is a really good. Oh, who's Veronica Mars? What is this show about? Well, she's a teenage detective, and here's what she does, and it's really cool. And then the last one I picked, because I think that there's one that we've both got that I think I'll let you talk about, and I'll jump in a little bit as well, is Misfits season 2, episode 7, the Christmas special. Interesting going back and watching that. I really liked Misfits when it was on. And then I watched this and I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't remember it being quite this. It's pushing buttons to try and push buttons, but I didn't remember it being quite this.
Button pushy.
Not problematic, because I think it knows what it's doing. Some of the language it uses and some of the. I was like, okay, I don't remember it being quite this extreme. I'd be quite interested to go back. That's the one for me. I'd be quite interested to go back and watch Misfits and see how watchable it is anymore. I really liked it when it was first on.
Lot of big name actors in it as well now, like
Joseph Gilgun comes in season 3, and he is one of my favorite actors. This Is England's Brassic. He's been in lots of films too, but he comes in the very next episode in the start of season 3. I love Joseph Gilgun. So yeah, I'd be interested to go back and watch that. I might do that for myself for fun, but I'm slightly worried now, having watched this episode, quite how difficult of a watch it might be at times.
Maybe. I remember it coming out. I didn't watch it, in fact. I'd never seen the show, but I knew what it was about. And people said, oh, it's about superheroes, so you must like it. I'm like, it's not just because it's about superheroes that I might like it, actually. But yeah, I heard about it again. It was kind of like that Shameless type show, and I'd seen a bit of that, and it's a bit raunchy, a bit weird, a bit strange, a bit funny. But yeah, I watched it as well. I watched that, and I watched a Veronica Mars one. The only one I didn't watch was The Bear, because I feel like I'm going to do those proper. I am going to give them a chance. The Veronica Mars one was a bit meh for me. I'll be honest, didn't really grab me. Didn't interest me, but again, I know the gist of the show already. But I think Kristen Bell was great in it, as she's good in everything. I can't really argue with that. But yeah, I don't think it really, again, it focused on a lot of kind of weedy, whiny.
It's
shitty
probably
characters.
Not. Again, it was much as we spoke about with Buffy, although that Buffy episode is better than this Veronica Mars episode.
Sure,
it's not the best example of a Veronica Mars episode, but because it's set at Christmas. Yeah, and I love the show. And as you said, Kristen Bell is so wonderful on that, right? And she has that same sassy response that Sarah Michelle Gellar has to everybody in Veronica Mars, and it's wonderful when people try and pet her down, and she will not take their shit.
Oh yeah, best character in it. I don't know if it was maybe the acting as well from a lot of the main players in it. I was like, don't know if, especially the younger actors. I think the older actors are fine, and that storyline I kind of preferred. That kind of section of the episode was more interesting for me, and the kind of the stalker killer and the carving of the pumpkin and Christmas party and stuff. I mean, I figured it out like almost immediately who it was. I was like, that's good though, but that's like an ADHD pattern recognition thing. So I'm not clever. It's just the way my brain is. But yeah, no, excellent. Good honourable mentions, and then I'm gonna. Was there another one?
Yeah.
Do you have any more? Yeah, you did. Sorry.
No, well, I think we've got a crossover, so I thought I'd let you talk about it, and if I had anything to chip in, I will.
Sure.
Go for it. You go for your.
Oh, that's mine. Oh, that's my cue. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah,
he missed it. This professional actor, this former professional actor, he missed
I know, right? Missing my cue. It wouldn't be the first time or the last time, I'm sure. I remember I was reading a comic book once during a pantomime, and they were calling my character's name literally on stage, and I was just like reading like Superman, War of the Worlds. or something.
These superhero things.
And they were like, yeah, fucking superheroes. And they were like, isn't that your cue? And I was like, yes. I just ran on stage like nothing had ever happened. Live theatre, everybody. That's the fun of it. So I love South Park. I talked about Red Sleigh Down when we did our Evil Killer Santas because of the Santa in that. But I could have gone with a Mr. Hanky episode. Quite an easy choice, that one. Great episode, classic character. But I went for something a bit more, again, anarchic and arguably a bit more offensive as well, because that's what South Park does best. Arguably. Definitely what South Park does best. I went for season 2, episode 16, Merry Christmas, Charlie Manson is what I went with. And again, it's another character who is not in the Christmas spirit, but the characters themselves force Charlie Manson, out of all people, to become, again, it's the classic Christmas Carol parody.
Yeah,
but
this episode attempts to redeem Charles Manson. Okay,
they know what they're doing. They know.
Of course they do. I know.
Of course, but yeah, and again, it's probably not the best episode, but I thought they know exactly what they're doing here, and they're having a bit of fun with it. They have him change the swastika on his head to a smiley face. Yeah, some great fun gags. The Cartman's family and all that sort of stuff is great fun.
Singing the songs in the car on the way to the relatives is so good.
And the fact that Stan says his parents are dead for Christmas, and Charlie Manson's like, you're in trouble, boy. I wouldn't want to be you. And they've got all these cops out there, and the cops shoot Kenny by mistake. Classic South Park. Again, very early on, before it gets like proper like topical, when they can make the episodes even quicker with computer generated stuff. But yeah, brilliant. Quality South Park episode. I've gone with the Twilight Zone I referenced earlier from season 3, episode 14. 5 characters in search of an exit. So you've got a clown, a general, a homeless man, a ballerina, and a bagpiper, all in this kind of cylinder. You don't know why, you don't know how, they have no memory of who they are, but they are trying to escape. I won't give away the end, but I thought it was surprisingly powerful, the feelings and the situation, I thought, considering that you don't know anything. And I thought it was very clever, but I think it was the least Christmassy of probably some of the stuff I was covering.
I liked it. I hated the end.
Yeah, don't like the twist. Yeah.
No, the ballerina though, my God, I was in love.
Stunning. Yeah, stunning.
Yeah, I mean, I know this isn't Perth podcast, but sometimes a man or a woman will be just strikingly beautiful.
Yeah,
you're like,
absolutely.
Whoa! She came on screen. I was like, Jesus, okay, that if you want to picture somebody that is the definition of beautiful, that was her. A bit like, I think her name is. Have you seen The Love Witch?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
The actress in The Love Witch. Again, the first time that she comes on screen in The Love Witch, I was like, oh my God, like a human can actually look like that.
Under her spell, you were under her spell.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So yeah, sorry.
That's all right, no problem.
Jack's pervy sidebar.
It's all right. You're allowed to be attracted to women, Jack, and you're allowed to say that you're attracted to them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you for permission.
It's okay. It's okay. Just don't go all leery and weird with it, and you're fine. So I've also gone with Inside Number 9, another anthology show. I'm a big fan of The Legal Gentlemen. I did rewatch the Christmas special for this, but it didn't hold up quite as well. But this episode, season 3, episode 1, The Christmas Devil, is very interesting, and I didn't quite see that twist coming either for this episode. But I really like, it's kind of like a DVD commentary almost, and they're rewinding, and they're talking about like actors missing their mark or things being in the wrong place because it's filmed live, and it's filmed in a I think it's filmed like 16mm as well to give it that old-timey look, those kind of BBC kind of ghost story episodes. I thought it was really good, really, really strong, that one.
I've never watched Inside Number 9. I definitely would be interested to now. You mentioned Garth Marenghi earlier. This gave me Garth Marenghi vibes.
Yes.
I really liked this, but again, I did not like the twist ending. I didn't think it fit and makes sense. I don't think if this was the ending, I won't ruin it, that you would then sit and do a DVD commentary, or you wouldn't do it. I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was great up until literally the last 10 seconds. Then I thought, that's
I get it. Yeah. Again, I didn't predict it, but again, I don't think I would have predicted it because
I think I'm in the minority. It's got very good reviews and people seem to think the ending's great.
I like it. There's another one they did, which I also very much enjoyed. I think it's the Bones of St. Nicholas, which apparently they've unearthed in the last day, the actual bones of St. Nicholas, like apparently where he's buried, where he's interned. Recently, they apparently have dug him up, though they think it might be St. Nicholas's bones. So just in time for Christmas, we're going to have, we're going to dig up. I mean, I feel like we're asking for trouble. This is like a Lovecraftian nightmare, maybe, if we uncover this. Maybe it's Krampus instead in there, the bones of Krampus, the Christmas devil himself. So I've went with another very old show as well, The Avengers. So not the Marvel Comics one, but Mrs. Steed and Mrs. Peel. Those Avengers, even though there was many different variations of that in the show. So that was season 4, episode 13, Too Many Christmas Trees, which is about 4 psychic characters hosting a Dickensian party, and they're trying to get into Steed's mind and uncover his secrets. Bizarre episode, very freaky, very surreal, very weird, but also very much campy fun.
Yeah, I mean, I Googled for ages all the different animated versions of the Avengers trying to find this, you prick. Because you just sent me the name of the Avengers.
I did.
That's got to be superheroes because it's Dan.
No. Well, I mean, it could be considered superheroes. Yeah. It's very
true.
strange. Very creepy Santa in it as well. Very bizarre.
I'm not sure the order of the Avengers and the Prisoner, but felt very kind of prisonery. Again, I've not seen a lot of The Prisoner, but obviously we're all quite aware. Speaking of Lost, The Prisoner was a massive influence on Lost. So this felt kind of an era, of a piece with The Prisoner.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very enjoyable, but very odd, and it knows exactly what it is. It's fun, campy, silly, but also kind of surreal and dark at the same time. But yeah, a lot of fun to be had there. And I've seen a few episodes of the show. Famously, the Hellfire Club from X-Men are inspired by an episode of the Avengers, and John Byrne and Chris Claremont were big fans of the show, so did influence other stuff as well. And I've got to go probably for my favourite. I know it's probably, again, another obvious one, that's why I didn't really include it, but Father Ted, a Christmassy Ted. It's classic sitcom antics. One of my favourite shows of all time. Again, very zany, silly, and goofy. But yeah, a lot of fun as well. And I think it was the last episode while the main actor was still alive, that came out. So it has a kind of a significance within the fan base because of that as well.
Yeah, the one I was thinking of was that we both watched the Murderville special, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I did watch it. I thought
it was fine, not great, but I mean, I listened to Smartless, which is where you mentioned Will Arnett and the Jason Bateman podcast with Sean. Why is his name escaping me right now? Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes, thank you, from Will and Grace. Yeah. Which is a wonderful podcast, and those guys are hilarious together, and it's really nice hearing 3 lifelong friends just kind of riffing and having fun. So the best bits about that Murderville episode was when they're all corpsing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, trying to kiss. They're giving Sean Hayes,
because they're all together in it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and quite a few times Will Arnett goes, which is rare to see him go, but there's quite a few times when he's corpsing and giggling away.
And I was watching that, and every time he said, "Come on," I was like, just kept going. I kept thinking of Afternoon Delight because he keeps going, $6,000 soup. Come on, I was just like, it just made me think of that, and that's kind of why I enjoyed it more. But yeah, I think I watched it halfway through, maybe the last Christmas. I didn't finish it, and then Pete Davidson just kind of must have appeared late in the day because he just seems really tacked on at the end. I don't know what he had going on, but it was just like, Pete Davidson is also here anyway. Carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically, if you don't know the show, it's Will Arnett and there's a scripted murder mystery. Will Arnett's a cop and an actor comes in and plays their partner, but they don't know the script. And the humor is because they don't know what's going on.
They're
and Will Arnett
improvise,
Yeah, Will Arnett forces them to do all sorts of ridiculous shit. And yeah, I think if you're into stuff like that, and then there's a lot of fun to be had. But yeah, I don't think it's one of the best episodes. Though they do bring back probably the guy who was in the best episode of the show of Murderville. I can't remember. I think he's a sports guy. I don't know his name, but he comes in very briefly. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's hilarious in his episode. He's absolutely like, he's off to the races and completely commits. And
Marshawn Lynch.
That's it, Marshawn Lynch. And he's kind of a bit dim, but the enthusiasm kind of just makes that episode absolutely work. But yeah, the Christmas one, not so much for me, not so much. But yeah, I can see why people like it. And again, I like Will Arnett, I like Jason Bateman, I like Maya Rudolph as well, who's great in it as well. Yeah. And they do have a lot of fun with all the accents and weird stuff, and even the other actors are corpsing, and there's some funny stuff that happens. But yeah, probably not the best Murderville of Murdervilles, but yeah, still good. No. Okay, are you ready for some listener comments?
Let's do it.
So Dave Horrocks says his top 5 is The Office, the UK Christmas special, Blackadder's Christmas special, Father Ted, A Christmassy Ted, good choice, Extras Christmas special, and the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special. What do you think of those 5?
I think Dave likes Christmas specials.
I think he likes sitcoms as well.
Yeah,
British sitcoms.
I was aware at the start that I didn't want to offend anybody with what I was saying, but they were kind of the things I wanted to myself swerve away from. I wanted to talk more about Christmas episodes within a series rather than the specials.
Specials specifically, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all big hitters for a reason, right? They're all very popular. They all know the audience they're trying to appeal to, and we'll see, right? I know there's a divide in the world about Gavin and Stacey, particularly about one of the main creators of the show. But we know it's coming back and sometime soon, and I'm sure I will be sitting watching it.
On the last Alternativity Stories podcast, Gavin and Stacey was mentioned, and I made no qualms about how I felt about that show.
No, you didn't.
I did not. I don't know if you've listened to that one yet.
Either.
I don't know if you've listened to the Spencer podcast yet at all, but no, it's about to come out publicly. But yeah, you'll. I fucking hate that show. I will say I did not like the Extras Christmas special. I thought it was really kind of patronising at the end. I feel like Ricky Gervais went into a space for a while, especially during Derek, where he was just like really patronising and talked down to his audience and like, isn't it sad? Let's play some sad music. Old people in nursing homes. Isn't it sad? And I was like, yeah, but what are you actually going to say about it? Other than it's sad, And I think that the end of the Extras, I love Extras, the whole show. Christmas special, I ignore, do not look at, because I just thought he absolutely shit the bed on the ending. But that's me. I've not seen the Blackadder Christmas special. I've been meaning to, and I was going to look at it. But I know it's a kind of a flip of Christmas Carol. Like
Christmas Carol, yeah.
Yeah, it gets worse, doesn't it? It becomes more like Blackadder as it goes on, more kind of heinous and evil and conniving and stuff. I believe that's what happens anyway. Max Burns says, Only Fools and Horses Christmas special. Any of them, all great. Can't disagree with that. They are all, especially the Batman and Robin one was one of my favourites.
Yeah, of course. Again, just wasn't consideration on my list because of previous mentioned reasons.
I mean, you've avoided all the ones that the listener comments were going to mention anyway, so it's a good thing, because I don't think anybody's mentioned yours. Mike Burton says, pretty hard to beat those that have already been mentioned. Doctor Who Christmas specials must be mentioned, even though all I've watched have been amidst the most boring episodes. Oh dear.
Sure. So let's pick the boring ones.
Yeah, let's bring them all up, but they're also the most boring. Okay, Mike, bit conflicted there. He also says South Park episode with Santa, Red Sleigh Down, which is a parody of Black Hawk Down, which again is really funny. I think that's what it's called. He says, that might be my favourite, but I don't generally like Christmas movies or specials. Much so, I'm glad you didn't ask me. But I did, Mike, and you answered. I did ask you. This is you answering. This is you answering that question that I specifically asked you and other people. But
I guess he meant to come on the show to do the full episode, right? But
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. He's had his top 5 recently, so he's had his chance in the sun. He's had almost back-to-back episodes in real time anyway. Apart from that earlier one from last year's Patreon. So Scott Weatherly from the 20th Century Geek says again, Blackadder's Christmas Carol, a Men Behaving Badly Christmas special as well. I can't remember that one. The first Porridge Christmas special I did try and watch, but I didn't really. There was a lot of stuff being referenced, and it was and the laugh track really fucked me off, so I had to turn it off. I couldn't get into it because it did sound interesting, but I just couldn't get into the vibe of it. And again, there's a lot of like slang and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, fucking 70s prison slang. I don't fucking know. So it kind of threw me off, that one, but I did try. And then he says, I do love Doctor Who Christmas episodes, so not like Mike at all. There is a Christmas episode of Bones which sees the team get trapped in a lab, which is great, with old Jess from New Girl's sister, isn't it?
And Angel. And David
Angel, yeah, of course, yeah. Does he do a terrible Irish accent, though? Does he? Probably not. It would only make it worse or better. Who knows? We'll find out. But John Hammond, he says, another one for Only Fools here. Doctor Who, A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol is my favourite of all the Dickens stories, of all time, in fact. So I had to choose it. I know it's a bit of a departure from the source material. Morecambe and Wise Christmas specials. My Nana loves Morecambe and Wise. It's like one of her favourites. Carry On Christmas. I love the movies, and this is a fun spin-off from them. The Simpsons, Roasting on an Open Fire, the first episode, and set the tone for the next 30-odd years. Yeah. And special mention to The X-Files, How the Ghost Stole Christmas. My favourite TV show ever. Happy to throw this in the mix. What about those?
I love The X-Files, and I did watch that as part of my research. And I'm sorry, John, I fell asleep. I didn't enjoy it. I was struggling. I didn't remember it either. Like, I did a rewatch a few years ago in time for season 11 when they were bringing it back, and I watched all of 1 through 10, and I had no memory of this episode at all. So, listen, as Max would say, horses for courses, right? But it was not a contender for my list, I'm afraid.
Only Fools and Horses for Courses.
Nice. That is why you are the improvising live late to stage guy.
Yeah, exactly. Miss my cues, but can improvise around them. So
beautiful.
That's my talent. So yes, and then finally, Math says season 2 of The Bear did kind of a Christmas special. It was at least an episode about them trying to do a Christmas dinner. Charlie Brown Christmas special. Glee. Oh gosh.
I tell you what.
Sorry, Math.
When this episode comes out, there's going to be some fights on Discord. You're smashing extras. Dave's going to be angry. Scott and Mike about Doctor Who. Me and John about X-Files. It's all kicking off.
It's like the Batman episodes that you've still not listened to, all kicking off again. It's all happening again. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to piss anybody off, but we tend to do that. Sorry, Math. Glee is not my bag, but I appreciate the you. It says Glee, which me and Amanda used to love. So that implies that you no longer love it, Math. So maybe we do have something in common. But they did a very Glee Christmas. Fucking hell, what a title. A very Glee Christmas. Fuck, it just rolls off the tongue, that, doesn't it? The Royal Family Christmas special was my favourite, but top of the tree for me is Father Ted in the wrong department. So in the Christmassy Ted, they end up all these priests end up in the women's lingerie section, and they can't find their way out.
Perfect.
Comedy genius. And then just one more thing to say. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. So that's where he ends his comments. Other buckets.
I forgot that last bit.
Yeah. Oh, no, other buckets. Yeah. Happy Yippee Kayak, other buckets. Still annoys him. Yes. Well, Jack, you have been a busy boy. We have an upcoming podcast for Back to the Filmography. We do. Beginning of January, did we say? I think.
Yeah. Right in the new year.
Right in the new year. So we're doing Lone Star, Matthew McConaughey's next entry, and again going back to Texas once again after his appearance in Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation. If you can guess by my excellent impression of him. So yeah, that's and I won't spoil it, but it's an interesting film to talk about. Very different from our previous one. But what else have you got coming up? Any other appearances? More season's greetings?
Yeah, so Tony and I are getting towards the end of our Justified run. We've just got City Primeval left to do. So that would have been what we called our year of the Oliphant, which has taken at least a couple. Life has got in the way, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, we both love Timothy Oliphant, but particularly love him as Raylan and Justified. So that's been an absolute labour of love watching Deadwood and that across more than a year. We've been speaking about Bruce Campbell. He will be coming up on Season's Greetings very soon, which is going to be exciting. I'll leave that till the announcement. But yeah, that's where we're at with that. And then obviously Matthew McConaughey will continue on back to filmography. We're about to hit the first kind of notable era. So after you, I'm going to do A Time to Kill. And then so sort of hopefully now we're finally over that very, very rocky start for him. And we're getting the kind of the start of who he is going to become. We'll see.
Definitely.
Because looking at the list, there's a few bumps on the way to go.
Absolutely. You've reminded me, I finished watching or listening to your Glory Days, and I'm like, oh yeah, I still need to write that review of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yes, you do.
I'll have to remember what I thought about that film.
You've got a while to go, to be fair. That's not going to come up for a considerable amount of time.
True. But yeah, I did prefer Texas Chainsaw between that and me and Lucy's double bill. That definitely came up trumps for both of us. Came up on top. But I'll get into that in my review. What I did and did not particularly like about it. But yeah, thank you again. Next week is kind of on the cards a little bit. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So Andy is being a bit messed around by his work, so we may not do a Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. But if we do, great news, because I'm also recording with Tony Farina, the man himself, and we're going to be looking at Robert Downey Jr., Andrew McCarthy, Jamie Gertz, and James Spader in Bret Easton Ellis's the adaptation of his novel Less Than Zero. And again, another not very Christmassy film at all.
It's sure to be full of cheer.
Yes, so if you are hearing it in public, then Andy was not able to do the podcast, which is fine. He's got stuff on. He's had a pretty tough year. Out of people I know have had tough years. I know somebody who's had to section their dad this year, and I think Andy's probably had a harder year than that. So all the goodwill and wishes and fun to Andy and stuff. He's amazing. We're going to carry on with our Sharing the Silver Screen. We're going to do Zulu in the beginning of the year as well. So I think that'll be a great one to start the new year off with. But yes, so if you hear Andy, then on Patreon, you're going to get Tony. If you hear Tony, then everyone can hear Tony this year, as opposed to next year when I'll probably drop it outside of Patreon for public. But we'll see what happens. But we've got backup plans. This time of year is very difficult for everyone to pin people down. I appreciate the people who do, much like Jack. Amazing. And, it's hard to, the point of this is that it does need to come out around this time of year. Can't really delay it. But I appreciate everyone who finds the time to sit down. Again, it's very hectic, a lot of stuff on, a lot of stuff to organise, money, finances, jobs and everything. I appreciate it. That's my Christmas gift every year, the chance to do it. And even if you don't, I appreciate you at least trying to sit down and do something with me. So yes, and Jack and me have almost talked for 3 hours on holiday specials now. So yes, Jack, where can people find you on social media and all of the other places?
Great question. I mean, I'm not massively active anymore, or currently. I'm not sure. We've all sort of migrated away from X, haven't we? But you can find me under my handle, I am Jack's Musings, on Threads, Instagram, and X, I believe. And then Back to the Filmography, it can be found at Back to the Film Og on all those same
do you have a Facebook page as well at all for the podcast yet? No. Yeah, I don't particularly think you need one, but if you wanted to, it's all in the shared platform.
Do not have the energy or the effort to invest in
that venture.
In that, yeah, it's just I hear a lot of people talk about this. It's like the least enjoyable part of running a podcast. This is what I love doing. This could, 3 hours. It's flown by. I could do another 3 hours with you, no problem.
Easy.
But I would hate to invest 3 minutes in having to then promote it on social media. So, yeah, it exists. I'll respond, but how active I am is another matter.
It's another question. Yeah, that's fine. Like, people say I'm pretty good at it, but I don't particularly like doing it either. I just feel like it needs to be done, and apparently I've got my Wrapped back, and there seems to be some positive kind of upward swing in the stats, which is good to see. Not massive improvements, but steady, long-term improvements on stuff. But yeah, we won't talk about the artists that don't get any money because of that, and the Wrapped thing being done by AI. I'm not going to think about that for this particular time. But yeah, thank you, Jack. This has been great, and again, it's been a wonderful experiment. We'll do something next year. I think next year, because Tonya's been very specific and wants to be very specific about a band movie month and what she wants to cover, which is great. I'm loving that. I'm kind of letting her run with that, and she's going to kind of be more of the host. I'll let her take the reins, so to speak, because she's been quite specific with that. I think, much like the guest versus guest on Patreon, I think for the theme months for Halloween and for the Alternativity Stories for Shockphobia Fest, I think I'm going to do guest versus host. So I'm going to pick something, and my guest is going to pick something, and we'll have the patrons vote and see what they want to hear more. So that'll be up to you, and that's another early Christmas gift for all my patrons. Thank you again, guys. Speaking of patrons, you know where to find me on all the social medias. There's going to be all the links and everything. It's always there. It's in the show notes. But I want to thank I Am Jack's Musings, of course. Biggest fan. Been here from day one. And Tony Farina, of course, again, next week's guest, potentially. Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Rhea Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne for their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. Okay, so just before it hits the 3-hour mark, we will say goodbye, and I wish you all happy holidays until next week. And again, the mystery guest will make themselves known, I'm sure. I'll probably announce it before it comes out. But yeah, we'll have content either way. You're not getting this. We're not going out on this, even though this has been a banger of a podcast. We've still got one more to go before 2025, the year of somebody's lord, I'm sure. So yes, thank you again, guys. Thank you, Jack, and I hope you go and enjoy all the new Christmas and holiday specials that are out this year and all the previous ones you've loved before. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week for more Alternativity Stories.